Our story begins with a man who, despite being very much alive, performed 999 legendary feats in the underworld and was just appointed as an official soul arbiter. However, he was immediately kicked back to the mortal realm by the flame turtle, and upon landing, he was stunned to find a terrifying apocalypse had begun. The world of the living is now overrun with ghosts, and some humans have even signed contracts to become ghost masters. At this very moment, we see two people standing before him. A middle-aged man, sensing the thick ghostly energy radiating from our protagonist, warns a young girl that with energy this dense, the entity must be incredibly dangerous. He urges her to use Taoist techniques immediately. The young girl quickly pulls out a handful of yellow paper talismans to deal with the supposed threat. She circles him, trapping him within a ring of talismans, and then charges forward with a peachwood sword. Our hero, meanwhile, is simply trying to suppress his energy. He grumbles to himself about running into lunatics the moment he returns to the living world, all while casually reaching out to tear down the surrounding talismans. The young girl is completely stunned by this sight. She can't believe such a fierce ghost could be totally unafraid of her talismans, but she refuses to give up just yet. She pulls out a rare purple talisman and slaps it directly onto his forehead. With a frown, he simply peels the paper off as if it were nothing more than a nuisance. After crumpling it into a ball and tossing it aside, he shouts at her, asking if she's lost her mind, before snatching the peachwood sword right out of her hand. He snaps that her whole family are the ghosts here and curses his bad luck for meeting two crazies so soon. Meanwhile, not far away, another presence is watching. A disheveled figure floating in midair mutters about the incredibly thick ghostly energy, thinking that if she consumes him, she will surely become much stronger. As she flies rapidly toward him, she suddenly freezes in midair, her expression shifting to pure terror before she turns to flee as fast as she can. She wonders how such a powerful figure could possibly appear in the mortal realm, fearing the barrier between yin and yang has completely vanished. We learn that 7 years ago, a crack formed in that very barrier, and overnight, countless ghosts flooded into the world of the living. This female ghost was one of them. To be honest, the stronger a ghost's power, the lower their chances of successfully crossing over to this side. She cannot comprehend how an existence at the level of a soul arbiter could be here. Just then, his voice thunders out from behind her, ordering her to stop. As soon as he speaks, a terrifying pressure instantly envelopes the female ghost. She immediately turns around and begins begging for her life. She cries out for Lord Mo Lin to have mercy. Confused, he asks how she could possibly know his name, which, naturally, is a very good question. It turns out she saw him 7 years ago when he was still a low-level reaper, and from her, he learns that the world has become a place where humans and ghosts coexist. We learn that to gather ghostly energy, some spirits sign contracts with humans, while others simply seize a territory to cultivate their power in solitude. After assessing the situation, Mo Lin tells the female ghost not to be afraid, promising he won't hurt her, a statement she accepts with frantic gratitude. She prepares to leave, but the moment she turns her back, he suddenly reaches out and strikes her throat, chanting a sealing incantation. The ghost vanishes instantly, and a notification rings out. He has acquired the ghost eye. Finally, the ghost book in his mind begins to stir. The first page finally turns, revealing the details of his new captive, Chunxi, a danger-level spirit possessing the unique ghost eye skill. She produces 20 Ming coins a day, and since higher-level spirits yield more currency, Mo Lin's eyes light up at the potential profit. These coins are condensed from pure ghostly energy, serving as the essential currency for both spirits and arbiters to increase their cultivation levels. Appointing new underworld officials requires a fortune in Ming coins, making them a necessity, and now, he only needs to catch more danger-level ghosts. If one ghost produces 20 coins a day, then capturing 10 of them would bring in 200 coins every single day. That adds up to over 60,000 coins a year. To be honest, back when he was a regular reaper, his annual salary wasn't even 100. Even more absurdly, he has also absorbed the spirit's own energy. For the first time, he truly feels the overwhelming power of the ghost book. Meanwhile, Chunxi finds herself trapped in a vast, walled void. She drifts about in a panic, screaming for someone to let her out. But then she pauses, realizing the ghostly energy here is incredibly dense, far more potent than anything found even in the underworld itself. We should remember that while she was in the mortal realm, gathering even a tiny bit of energy required an exhausting amount of time and effort. Yet here, a single breath provides her with more energy than she could have accumulated in an entire month on the outside. It is, quite literally, a paradise for powerful spirits. However, before she can celebrate, she suddenly finds herself summoned back before Mo Lin. He looks at the terrified Chunxi and asks if she wants him to set her free. She immediately shakes her head, claiming it's a blessing to stay. She isn't a fool. After all, anyone would be crazy to leave a place so rich in energy. Mo Lin nods and asks about her specific power. Suddenly, a sharp sound cuts through the air as bright, grayish-white lights illuminate the area from all sides, and several pickup trucks roar into view. She asks where the ghost they were sent to capture is located, and Elder Yun immediately realizes that the backup has finally arrived. He explains that the evil spirit has already been defeated. Just then, Xian Yun, the woman Mo Lin saved earlier, approaches the elder with deep guilt. She apologizes for the loss of his arm, but Elder Yun simply sighs, admitting his own arrogance and failure to scout the ghost's true strength were to blame. Xian Yun then turns her attention to Mo Lin, asking her benefactor if he is alright or if the ghost managed to injure him during the struggle. After Mo Lin shakes his head to signal he is unharmed, Xian Yun quickly arranges for a car to take him to a luxury hotel for the night. Early the next morning, the woman from the Ghost Jade Society knocks on his door, introducing herself as Li Binyan, the vice president of the local branch. By now, Mo Lin has already heard from Xian Yun that the Ghost Jade Society is a national organization with branches in almost every region. Before he can even ask why she has come to see him, Binyan gets straight to the point with a rather interesting proposal. She invites him to join the society, promising that they won't restrict his freedom and that he can continue to do whatever he pleases. They would only ask for his help when they encounter a problem they cannot solve, and of course, they would pay him handsomely for his services. Mo Lin remains unimpressed by the offer, simply gesturing for her to continue, which prompts Binyan to reveal their greatest asset. She explains that the society possesses the most powerful intelligence network available. If he ever needs to find a specific person or ghost, they can provide the data. She adds that they can also provide political influence if he runs into trouble, and Mo Lin pauses, considering that he has only just returned to the living world. Since he hasn't quite figured out the current state of the living world, Mo Lin tells her he will give the offer some serious thought. Li Binyan doesn't seem disappointed by this answer. She politely says her goodbyes and, after leaving the hotel, heads toward her car. The man following behind Binyan grumbles with dissatisfaction, noting that Mo Lin is just a jade ghost messenger. He asks if it was really necessary to be so humble, but Binyan sternly reminds him that Mo Lin captured a Terror-class ghost. The man instinctively argues, recalling that Elder Yun said the ghost was merely driven away. He wonders if the old man was lying. Then it clicks. If Mo Lin truly captured a Terror-class ghost, it means he must have already formed a contract with one. That would make him a level 4 Jade Ghost Messenger, and if he really caught yesterday's spirit, he would now possess 2 of them. The man gasps as the realization hits him, finally understanding Binyan's respectful attitude. Meanwhile, we return to Mo Lin. He is sitting on the sofa, drinking soda and eating snacks while watching TV, simply savoring the feeling of being human again. Once he has had his fill, he pulls out the golden scroll given to him by the King of Hell and finds a hidden message inside. The message explains that the Ghost Cave and the Bridge of Helplessness have already established their own powerful factions in the living world. He is warned to be careful, as a woman named Zishang Qingru is being hunted by the Ghost Cave, and he must help her escape. Mo Lin strokes his chin in thought. It seems the other 2 factions are doing quite well, while his own side has no foundation at all. The Zishang Qingru mentioned in the scroll is actually his senior, someone who helped him immensely back when he was a ghost messenger. She was the strongest among them, so the King of Hell spent a fortune in Ming coins to send her to the living world to build a base. It has been 3 years now, and it seems his senior hasn't made much progress. In fact, she's actually being hunted by their enemies. Mo Lin suddenly remembers the Ghost Jade Society Binyan mentioned. Using their intelligence network might be the best way to find her. Realizing that having a powerful backer is never a bad thing, he picks up the phone and contacts Li Binyan to accept the offer. To his surprise, she and Xian Yun arrive very quickly. Binyan presents him with a specialized smartphone and an official identification card. After exchanging a few polite words, Binyan departs, leaving Xian Yun behind to finally explain the true reason for her visit. Xian Yun asks Mo Lin if he can help her capture a ghost, promising not to let his efforts go unrewarded as she pulls out a small bell. He sees immediately that it is a decent spiritual tool, though quite useless to him. Seeing his silence, Xian Yun quickly adds more to the offer. She offers 10 million in cash, a house, and a Rolls-Royce, clearly desperate to capture a powerful spirit of her own. Her younger siblings have already become Jade Ghost Messengers, and she fears that if she cannot reach their level, her influence within the Xian family will continue to fade. After a moment of thought, Mo Lin tells her that if she can help him find a specific person, a Nighthawk messenger named Zishang Qingru, he will agree to her request. Before he even finishes, Xian Yun answers excitedly. She mentions she happens to know of a Nighthawk messenger, though she isn't certain if it's the exact person he is looking for. Mo Lin is surprised to find a lead so quickly and immediately asks for the location, but Xian Yun's expression suddenly darkens. With a look of dread, she reveals that the messenger is currently being auctioned off. The next second, she instinctively recoils 2 steps. A terrifying pressure radiates from Mo Lin as he coldly demands to know where this auction is taking place. Trembling, Xian Yun stammers out the name. It is being held at the Jingxi Hall. We soon learn from her that this establishment used to be nothing more than a rundown blade shop. It had no reputation to speak of until 7 years ago, when the horror apocalypse began and humanity fell to the bottom of the food chain. Jingxi Hall rose to power by using specialized wooden swords to capture ghosts, and over those 7 years, it gradually transformed into a highly prestigious organization. After explaining this, Xianyun steals a glance at Mo Lin before cautiously speaking up again. She warns him that Jingxi Hall is currently protected by 2 level 4 ghost messengers and 5 level 3s, making a direct approach very dangerous. Mo Lin simply tells her to lead the way and not to worry about the rest, promising to catch her ghost once the matter is settled. Seeing she cannot dissuade him, she nods in agreement. However, as they reach the hotel lobby, a bald man blocks their path and asks where she's going. Xianyun frowns and snaps at him to get out of the way, but the bald man only offers a look of pure disdain. He mockingly asks if her important business involves the death of 5 ghost messengers last night, or perhaps her habit of giving away the family's few remaining spiritual tools. He scoffs at her performance as acting head of the family, which has lasted less than a month. He claims she wasted nearly 10,000 coins, and now the old master is furious enough to strip her of her position as acting head. Furthermore, she is to be grounded for 6 months. Xianyun's face darkens instantly as she realizes her own family is plotting against her. Before she can even respond, the bald man waves his hand, signaling 2 thugs behind him to step forward and take her away. Watching this, Mo Lin loses his patience and tells them to get lost, prompting the bald man to look him up and down with total disdain. He mocks Mo Lin's outfit, telling him that wearing a costume doesn't make him a hero and warning him not to meddle in family business. Without wasting another word, Mo Lin delivers a swift kick that sends the man flying, before leading Xianyun out of the hotel. Meanwhile, the auction at Jingxi Hall is nearing its end. Everything has been sold, yet the promised ghost messenger has still not appeared. As the crowd begins to voice their growing dissatisfaction, a middle-aged man finally emerges, smiling as he carries a small wooden cage. He tells them not to worry, as the messenger is finally here, and every eye in the room fixes on the cage covered in black cloth. The cloth is covered in dense red script, and as the man slowly lifts a corner, he reveals a miniature, shadowy black figure inside. He explains that this is the ghost messenger, claiming that anyone who forms a contract with it could reach level 5 status at the very least. They might even reach level 6, a prospect that has everyone eager to bid, until, that is, the man reveals the starting price. Once he announces the base price of 20,000 coins, the noisy crowd falls into a stunned, absolute silence. No one dares to bid. Eventually, a young man asks if the price can be lowered, but the middle-aged man shakes his head, insisting on the full 20,000. He explains that the messenger is being sold on consignment for someone else, and finally, a wealthy youth named Wang Bin places the bid. The man beams, praising Wang Bin for his generosity, while the young master asks if he can inspect the goods before finalizing the deal. The man agrees and hands over the cage. Wang Bin takes it and pulls back the black cloth to get a better look at his prize. It is indeed a ghost messenger, though it has been beaten so badly that its soul is on the verge of dissipating. Not that he minds, really. His only goal is to have his own contracted ghost absorb this one, allowing it to evolve into a much more dangerous, high-rank spirit that would elevate him to a level 3 messenger. Meanwhile, we see that Mo Lin and Xianyun have finally arrived at Jingxi Hall. As she steps out of the car, Xianyun urges Mo Lin to hurry, fearing someone else might buy the ghost messenger if they are late. However, Mo Lin stops in his tracks and turns toward a young man holding a wooden cage, sensing the unmistakable aura of a messenger. Sensing the heavy gaze, Wang Bin grows wary and asks Mo Lin why he is staring so intently. He's clearly on edge. Mo Lin points to the cage and asks if it contains the ghost messenger, causing Wang Bin to step back from this intimidating stranger. Wang Bin explains he paid 20,000 coins for it, offering to sell it to Mo Lin only if he can match that exact price. Mo Lin pauses to consider. He has less than 4,000 coins to his name, so he asks if he can offer something else. Wang Bin refuses without a second thought, likely guessing that Mo Lin simply doesn't have the cash. To be honest, he's right. A middle-aged man beside him barks at Mo Lin to get out of the way, while Xianyun quickly whispers a warning. She identifies the man as Yang Su, a level 3 ghost master and bodyguard for the Wang family. But before she can finish, a sound erupts. A soft explosion echoes as a wisp of black smoke rises from Mo Lin's red official robes. It seems an attack was made. Yang Su's expression shifts to one of pure shock. His ghost technique had struck the man, yet it hadn't left a single scratch. What they don't realize is that Mo Lin's robes are a powerful artifact, capable of withstanding even the most terrifying of spirits. Mo Lin raises his hand and summons his soul chain, which shoots directly toward Yang Su before the bodyguard can even think of dodging. The chain wraps tightly around Yang Su's neck, instantly paralyzing him. Seeing this, Wang Bin quickly tries to de-escalate the situation. He begs Mo Lin not to be impulsive, promising they can negotiate. Mo Lin retracts the chain, leaving Yang Su trembling on the ground. The bodyguard wonders where such a monster came from, while Mo Lin tells Wang Bin he won't take the messenger for free. He promises something of equal value in exchange. Knowing he's outmatched, Wang Bin admits he only bought the spirit for a specific purpose. He wanted to evolve his own ghost to a higher rank, something he assumes Mo Lin cannot help with. Then, he sighs in defeat. Deciding it isn't worth the risk, Wang Bin tells Mo Lin he can simply have the ghost messenger as a gift. A wise choice, really. Instead of accepting the charity, Mo Lin leads Wang Bin to a nearby dark room and commands his own spirit to emerge. Wang Bin looks around in confusion, wondering who on earth Mo Lin is talking to, as they seem to be completely alone in the room. Mo Lin watches the bewildered young man and tells him to stay still. He isn't calling for him, but for the entity residing within his body. Wang Bin looks at him as if he's lost his mind, insisting his contracted ghost cannot be summoned by an outsider. But then, the air shifts. A dark figure slowly drifts out from within Wang Bin, leaving the young man utterly stunned as his spirit actually obeys the command. The contracted ghost trembles and begs for mercy, explaining that its soul is weak and its senses were too slow to react immediately. It apologizes for the delay in greeting him, and when Mo Lin asks if it belongs to the ghost decree, the spirit answers with a shaky voice. The spirit explains it was once a ghost of the night pocket before being captured by the ghost decree. Mo Lin notices its soul is nearly dissipating. When asked how it sustained such heavy injuries, the ghost sighs, recalling the time Mo Lin used a forbidden technique within the ghost decree. It describes how Mo Lin summoned a ghost king that devastated everything. The poor spirit had only caught a glimpse before being caught in the crossfire. Wang Bin listens to this exchange in a complete daze, wondering how a living man could have caused such chaos in the underworld. The ghost's words bring back a rather awkward memory for Mo Lin, as that specific technique hadn't been fully mastered at the time. He had paid a heavy price for using it, and since that day, everyone in the ghost decree knew he was the successor of the celestial master. With a sigh, Mo Lin offers to heal the spirit's wounds, pulling out 10 high-value notes of underworld currency from his sacred book. With a simple wave of his hand, he sends the spirit back into Wang Bin's body, now restored and significantly empowered. Wang Bin immediately feels the surge of danger-level power, realizing he is now a level 3 Ghost Master. Naturally, he is ecstatic. Calling him Brother Mo, Wang Bin eagerly agrees to hand over the Ghost Messenger and leads him outside to find Yang Su. However, as they step out, they see Yang Su's car speeding away right past them. Both men stand there, completely dumbfounded. Mo Lin feels a flicker of genuine annoyance. He had just upgraded Wang Bin's ghost, only for the bodyguard to flee with the prize. It feels like a blatant betrayal of their deal. Wang Bin, sensing the danger, frantically tries to explain that this wasn't his idea. He quickly pulls out his phone to call Yang Su, screaming into the receiver and demanding to know why on earth he is running away. On the other end of the line, Yang Su grits his teeth and tells his young master to hold on just a little longer. He claims he's heading back to get the old master for a rescue, prompting Wang Bin to start cursing at his sheer stupidity. Seeing this outburst, Yang Su becomes even more convinced that Wang Bin is being coerced into speaking against his will. He insists he'll return with reinforcements to deal with Mo Lin, leaving poor Wang Bin completely speechless at the misunderstanding. Wang Bin screams that he isn't being threatened and is acting of his own free will, demanding the ghost messenger be returned immediately. Perhaps because Wang Bin sounds a bit too desperate, Yang Su has absolutely no intention of turning that car around. Wang Bin looks guiltily between Mo Lin and his phone, realizing this mess won't be settled with a simple phone call. Mo Lin decides he'll simply have to visit the family home to retrieve the prize, and Wang Bin eagerly offers to lead the way. However, Mo Lin shakes his head. He has one more matter to settle here first as he turns back toward the mirror hall. He coldly demands to know who captured the ghost messenger, drawing the suspicious gaze of everyone present in the room. A middle-aged man narrows his eyes, asking what he means by that, only for Mo Lin to repeat his question even more firmly. The man snaps back that it's none of his business, assuming Mo Lin is just another troublemaker looking for a fight. We see the young disciple, Xiaosheng, lean in to warn Mo Lin that these men are all level 3 ghost masters. Mo Lin calmly explains he isn't there to cause trouble, but the middle-aged man only snorts and prepares to summon his contracted ghost. But suddenly, the man realizes his ghost has seemingly vanished. No matter how hard he calls, there is only a chilling silence. Behind him, the other level 3 ghost masters find themselves in the exact same predicament. Their powers have completely stalled. Mo Lin notes that if they aren't willing to talk about the ghost messenger, he might have to resort to more persuasive methods. Despite the obvious warning, the members of the Mirror Hall continue their futile struggle to reconnect with their spirits. Finally, the master of the Taoist temple steps forward, bowing deeply and begging Mo Lin to withdraw his overwhelming spiritual pressure. Mo Lin takes a deep breath and pulls back the power he was about to unleash, deciding to hear what the master has to say. Since the person in charge has finally stepped forward, Mo Lin decides there's no need to unleash his hidden ghost techniques just yet. The others, however, are outraged by the master's polite tone, demanding Mo Lin be expelled, only for the master to coldly tell them to shut up. Calling them a bunch of short-sighted fools, the master turns back to Mo Lin with a respectful smile and invites him inside to speak privately. As they head toward the inner chamber, we see poor Wang Bin staring at the floor with a look of pure disgust at the puddle Mo Lin left behind. He wonders if he truly has to pick up that saliva, but the ghost inside him becomes completely frantic, screaming at him to move faster. The spirit calls him an idiot, explaining that this isn't mere spit, but a liquid formed from concentrated ghost energy, a true treasure for any spirit. Feeling his ghost's desperation, Wang Bin bites the bullet and uses a tissue to pick it up, only to look up and realize he's being watched. He sees Xiao Sheng looking at him with a mix of shock and utter revulsion, while inside, Mo Lin gets straight to the point of his visit. He repeats that he only wants to know who captured the ghost messenger, prompting the master to order the man, Qingyu, to speak up. Seeing the master's grim expression, Qingyu stops stalling and quickly explains that they didn't actually capture the ghost themselves. He reveals it was left there on consignment for a 10% commission, so Mo Lin presses him for a name, an organization, or a location. Qingyu recalls that the man called himself Sun Yi and didn't seem to be a local, noting they had only met once during the transaction. He admits they know nothing else, but offers to contact Mo Lin when the man returns for his payment, a deal which Mo Lin accepts. After leaving his phone number, Mo Lin departs, leaving a confused Qingyu to ask the old master why he was being so incredibly polite. He questions why they would break the long-standing rules of their ancestral hall for a mere boy, but the master simply remains calm. The master asks the group if they've realized yet why they were unable to summon their contracted ghosts just a few moments ago. When everyone shakes their heads in confusion, he reveals the simple, terrifying truth. It was because their ghosts were paralyzed with fear. The men find it hard to believe a spirit could fear a human, but the master warns them that Mo Lin is an existence they cannot afford to provoke. Meanwhile, Wang Bin has already driven Mo Lin and Xiao Sheng to the front gates of his family's massive luxury villa. As Mo Lin steps out of the car, his eyes immediately lock onto a tattooed man leaving the house, followed by a haunting, blood-red shadow. Inside that shadow, various remnants are screaming for help, a grim sight that reveals the nature of this tattooed man's contracted ghost. It has been absorbing the essence and blood of these spirits to increase its power, a detail Mo Lin notices as Wang Bin quickly begins the introductions. He explains that the man is named Longhua, a 4th-level ghost user. Meanwhile, Longhua himself suddenly pauses in his tracks. It seems as though he is speaking to someone, and after a quick, sharp glance in their direction, he picks up his pace to leave. Sensing a very familiar aura emanating from the man, Mo Lin moves with a flash of speed to block his path, greeting him like an old friend. He asks why he's running away, but Longhua merely looks at him with pure impatience, claiming he doesn't know him at all. Longhua tries to turn and leave once more, but Mo Lin stops him again, calmly clarifying that he wasn't actually speaking to the man. He reveals he is speaking to the ghost inside. Zhang Gui, we dealt with each other several times in the underworld. Won't you come out? Before Longhua can utter another word, a pitch-black figure slowly floats out from his body, trembling as it begs the Great One for mercy. Everyone present is utterly shocked to see a 4th-level ghost acting so cowardly, but Mo Lin shows no mercy as he begins his rebuke. He reminds Zhang Gui that he committed nothing but evil in the underworld, and is doing the same here, a crime that surely deserves death. It turns out this spirit belonged to the Ghost Oracle. Back when Mo Lin was still a Soul Reaper, the two had clashed more than once. Mo Lin had cut him down 3 times back then, greatly reducing his power, yet the ghost had somehow managed to escape back to the living world. Suppressing his inner rage, Zhang Gui begs again, claiming they have no personal grudge, but Mo Lin only responds with a look of pure disdain. He asks how there could be no grudge when the ghost murdered several of his friends in the underworld, and suddenly, a spectral chain appears. The chain lunges for Zhang Gui, and though the spirit tries to dodge, the iron links cling to him like a second skin, binding him instantly. Realizing there is no escape today, Zhang Gui lets out a desperate, piercing howl, reminding Mo Lin that they are currently in the world of the living. The onlookers are left breathless by the scene. This was a Terror-class ghost, yet Mo Lin suppressed it in less than a few minutes. It is a display of sheer, overwhelming force, and seeing his ghost being taken away, Longhua charges forward in a frantic attempt to reclaim it. After sending the man flying with a single kick, Mo Lin turns to Wang Bin and calmly suggests taking him to the Public Security Bureau. Mo Lin reveals that the man has killed at least a dozen people, prompting Wang Bin to immediately order his men to tie Longhua up. Seeing that the business is concluded, Wang Bin's father quickly calls out, telling his son not to just stand there and to invite their honored guest inside. Wang Bin agrees instantly, though not before slapping Yang Su on the back of the head and ordering the fool to bring the yin chai forward. Soon, we see a wooden cage containing the yin chai. When the black cloth is lifted, a tiny pitch-black figure appears, its limbs pierced by thin red ropes. The figure hangs suspended in the center, and the moment Mo Lin sees the small black entity, he realizes this yin chai is not actually his senior sister. As he attempts to open the wooden cage, a sudden crackle of electricity surges through it, forcing him to let go of the bars immediately. In the next instant, a red silk thread lunges directly at him, but Mo Lin is ready and draws the long sword from his waist. He slices through the red thread with ease before swinging his blade once more at the cage, shattering the wooden structure into pieces. He then places his palm on the spirit and infuses it with ghost chi, allowing the creature's body to quickly return to its normal size. Once restored, the spirit immediately drops to one knee, identifying himself as Li Shui and thanking the Great One for saving his life. Mo Lin asks who captured him, and Li Shui, feeling he finally has someone to rely on, eagerly explains he was ambushed by a ghost prison official. He was caught in a joint trap set by the official and a jade ghost envoy. Mo Lin ponders this before asking if he knows the whereabouts of Shang Qingru. The ghost quickly replies that Shang Qingru has been missing for a year, and despite sending other spirits to search, there has been no news at all. Realizing there is no more useful information to be had, Mo Lin tells him to find a place to heal, promising to summon him when needed. Turning to Xian Yun, he asks if she can lend him 10,000 Ming coins, a request she agrees to without a second thought. She promises to go home and find a way to raise the money immediately before departing, and Mo Lin himself decides not to linger any longer. We return to the hotel where, upon entering his room, he summons Zhang Gui to interrogate him about the inner workings of the ghost prison. Trembling with fear, Zhang Gui explains that the ghost prison currently occupies 3 provinces and has built up a formidable force of its own. Furthermore, they are collaborating with the Jade Ghost Envoys to target Soul Reapers from the Night Pocket, having already intercepted 32 of them. Mo Lin pauses to reflect, wondering how the ghost prison could possibly know the locations of the Reapers across the vast territory of the Dragon Kingdom. It was truly baffling how easily these Soul Reapers were being tracked down, and Zhang Gui could only shake his head, admitting he didn't know the reason. He explained that his strength was shallow and he only knew common rumors, leaving Mo Lin with a growing headache over the ghost prison's targeted attacks. This meant he was a target too, considering how many of their kind he'd dispatched in the underworld. Just then, his phone began to ring. It was Li Binyan, her voice sounding frantic as she asked if he had a moment, to which he calmly told her to get straight to the point. She didn't waste any words, explaining that a powerful and malevolent spirit had appeared at 26 Wanhai Street. 3 Jade Ghost Envoys had already been killed, and she wanted him to investigate the scene personally. The promise of a 2,000 Ming coin reward was all he needed to hear, as he was currently quite short on cash. After hanging up, he changed his clothes. Wearing his official Soul Reaper attire would be far too conspicuous to other ghosts, after all. Until he gathered more intel on the ghost prison, he decided it was best to keep a low profile, grabbing his sword before heading out. He took a taxi to the address, only to find the road ahead completely cordoned off by a guard who told him entry was strictly forbidden. Mo Lin produced the credentials Li Binyan had given him, identifying himself as a member of the Jade Ghost Society, sent to handle the trouble. The man immediately changed his tune and asked Mo Lin to follow him, offering a kind, if somewhat grim, warning as they walked. He mentioned that of the 4 envoys who arrived earlier, 3 were dead and 1 was critically injured, urging Mo Lin to be extremely careful. They soon reached an abandoned building where a group was huddled in discussion. The man approached a woman with a ponytail, calling her Tang Fong. Tang Fong simply nodded at the news of a new arrival from the society and went back to her phone call, largely ignoring our protagonist. She seemed to be asking someone how much longer they would be, so Mo Lin decided to simply head into the building on his own. He hadn't gone far before Tang Fong grabbed his arm, demanding to know what he was doing. He simply replied that he was there to catch a ghost. She pulled him back without further discussion, telling him the ghost inside was vicious and that going in alone was essentially a suicide mission. She told him to be patient, as she had invited a powerful expert to assist them, and they would all enter together once he arrived. 10 minutes later, the roar of an engine filled the air, and we see a helicopter descending toward the scene, its blades cutting through the silence. The engine noise fades as the helicopter lands in a nearby clearing, and a woman holding an umbrella steps out, while Tang Fong introduces her to us. She explains that Yun Ling is the strongest among the rank 3 Jade Ghost Envoys, and that the umbrella she carries is actually a powerful ghost tool. A dangerous level ghost resides within it. Yun Ling approaches and asks about the situation, prompting Tang Fong to explain with a worried frown. The situation is dire, as they have already lost 3 Jade Ghost Envoys, a fact that causes Yun Ling to thoughtfully pat her black umbrella. A moment later, a dark figure drifts out and whispers something into Yun Ling's ear, to which she simply nods in understanding. She signals Tang Fong to head toward the abandoned building, and Mo Lin quickly follows, prompting Yun Ling to notice his unfamiliar face and ask if he's new. She tells him to stay close so she can protect him when they encounter the ghost, before turning to lead the way into the ruins. However, they hadn't gone far when a sudden sound startles Tang Fong and Yun Ling, forcing Mo Lin to awkwardly admit he just stepped on a stone. Deep down, he finds their jumpy reactions a bit much, though to be fair, the atmosphere in this place is enough to make anyone nervous. They ask if he saw something, but he simply points in the opposite direction and says he'll be heading that way, not waiting for a response. As he walks away, Tang Fong watches his back and sighs, assuming the newcomer is simply terrified because he hasn't faced life and death before. Yun Ling agrees, noting that everyone starts as a novice and remembering how frightened she was during her own first ghost hunting mission. Suddenly, the ghost beside Yun Ling senses something and charges forward, prompting her to pick up the pace and follow it closely. Meanwhile, as Mo Lin reaches the second floor, a wave of unnatural cold hits him, and he looks up to see a rotting, spectral face staring back. The ghost swings its palm, sending a surge of dark energy toward him, but he casually raises a hand and blocks the attack with ease. With a swift punch, he unleashes a soul-refining strike that instantly binds the spirit, leaving him to chin-stroke while examining the trapped Li Gu. He mutters to himself that this is a perilous level Li Gu, remembering his earlier promise to bring Xianyu a ghost of exactly this caliber. Deciding this one is a perfect fit, he places his hand on the ghost's head and performs a sealing technique, causing the spirit to condense. The sealed ghost cries out in shock, realizing he knows the sealing technique and trembling at the thought that he might be a lord of the underworld. It immediately begins to beg for its life, claiming it didn't kill those envoys out of malice, but merely to protect itself from being captured. He casually slipped the black sphere into his pocket, telling the spirit not to worry as he wouldn't hurt it, before stepping out of the abandoned building. Meanwhile, in another part of the ruins, Yun Ling had just dispersed a perilous level ghost and told Tang Fong that another, more dangerous spirit must be lurking nearby. She reasoned that a single perilous level ghost couldn't have killed 3 envoys, yet after searching the building for hours, they found absolutely nothing. Eventually, they were forced to give up the search. At that same moment, over at the Xian family estate, a young man was shouting at Xianyu in a rage. He accused her of wasting over 10,000 spirit coins already, asking if she intended to drain the family dry by demanding another 10,000. Xianyu argued back stubbornly, claiming she had met a powerful friend who was willing to capture a calamity-level ghost for her in exchange for a loan. The young man, her cousin, simply sneered and asked if she was dreaming, clearly finding the idea of such a deal laughable. He reminded her quite sharply just how difficult it is to capture a ghost of that caliber, which, to be fair, is a valid point. Suddenly, Xianyu's grandfather spoke up, suggesting they give her the money, a decision that her uncle immediately and loudly protested. He reminded his father that Xianyu had already destroyed several ghost tools, and giving away their last 10,000 coins would be their ruin. Her cousin chimed in as well, noting that she had already squandered 2/3 of the family's assets through her previous failures. He suggested that instead of giving her more money, they should lock her up as a warning, but right then, an unfamiliar voice cut through the room. Mo Lin walked in, asking who would dare to lock her up, as he moved through the stunned crowd to stand directly in front of Xianyu. He calmly asked if they were having an argument, but before she could answer, her aunt stepped forward to interrogate the newcomer. She asked if he was the one trying to borrow 10,000 coins, and when he nodded in confirmation, the cousin began to mock him openly. He called Xianyu a fool for believing that a mere kid like Mo Lin could ever hope to catch a calamity-level ghost. The aunt added that she was certain he was being scammed, but Mo Lin didn't bother with words. He simply gave a casual wave of his hand. A ghostly figure materialized out of thin air, causing the old patriarch's eyes to widen in shock as he recognized it as a genuine calamity-level spirit. The cousin swallowed hard in terror at the sight of the ferocious ghost, while Mo Lin simply turned to Xianyu with a calm expression. He told her the ghost was hers and to go ahead with the contract, leaving her both overjoyed and worried about what the price might be. We must understand that in the eyes of a ghost, humans are often seen as inferior beings, which makes forming a contract quite a challenge. To satisfy a spirit's demands, the more powerful the ghost, the higher the price one must pay, though what that price is depends entirely on the ghost. But Mo Lin didn't give the spirit a chance to speak, declaring firmly that there would be no price at all for this particular arrangement. He told them to simply sign the contract, then turned to the ghost and commanded it to produce the document immediately. The ghost was surprisingly cooperative, presenting a contract that contained only the words "form contract," with no other conditions attached. Xianyu looked back and forth between Mo Lin and the fierce spirit, wondering how it could be so obedient, yet she didn't hesitate for a second. She pressed her finger onto the paper, and in the next heartbeat, the ghost vanished directly into her body. Mo Lin took the money, telling her not to mention it. He had promised to catch a ghost for her, and he wasn't one to break his word. He added that he would repay the loan soon, and requested that the house she found be in a place with heavy energy. He was mindful of the fact that he now owed both Xianyu and Wang Bing 10,000 coins each, so he asked her how one might earn money quickly. Xianyu thought for a moment and admitted there weren't many ways to get rich fast, at least not through conventional means. However, she noted that if he had extra ghostly artifacts to sell, he could make a fortune, as such items are incredibly rare in the living world. Even a low-quality artifact could easily fetch several thousand coins, and Mo Lin's eyes lit up at the realization. He recalled his time in the underworld where the Yama King himself had taught him how to refine such artifacts, a very useful skill indeed. With a plan forming, he asked where one would go to sell these items, and she pointed him toward the Sifong courtyard in the city center. It was a hub for ghost envoys to trade, where artifacts were always in high demand. Satisfied, Mo Lin left the estate and headed back to his hotel. We see Mo Lin begin his preparations to refine ghostly energy, holding a stack of spirit coins in his right hand while his left moves through complex gestures. The coins soon dissolve into a spectral mist, and as time passes, the phantom image of a small knife begins to solidify in his palm. He noted that this blade was merely a low-grade artifact with only 7 uses, likely worth a few thousand coins, still a decent profit, all things considered. And so, he spent the entire night consuming over 7,000 spirit coins to refine 3 more ghostly artifacts for his collection. At dawn, he made use of the car Xianyu had provided and arrived at the Sifong courtyard trading floor, approaching a random stall to browse. He picked up a bell-shaped artifact, observing with a critical eye that this low-level item could only be used once and was already quite damaged. When he asked about the price, the owner looked at him as if he were a complete fool, snapping at him for his apparent lack of common sense. The man explained that an artifact capable of 6 uses was already a rare treasure, the kind of item that almost never appeared on the open market. It turns out that in this world, the value of a ghostly tool is tied directly to its durability, and the owner couldn't believe Mo Lin's ignorance. The merchant continued to mutter under his breath about the young man's lack of experience, clearly annoyed by the line of questioning. He seemed genuinely offended that someone would walk up to his stall and speak so casually about high-level artifacts as if they were common trash. The man's frustration was palpable as he stared Mo Lin down, wondering where this newcomer had even come from. He reiterated that rare items simply don't show up in markets like this, confirming for Mo Lin that the more uses an item has, the higher its value. In fact, the most valuable ghostly artifacts currently for sale in the Sifong courtyard were limited to a maximum of only 3 uses. Through this conversation, Mo Lin finally understood the true worth of his own creations, which boasted a full 7 uses each. Realizing he could fetch a handsome price, he pulled out one of his refined daggers and handed it over to the owner for an appraisal. The owner's eyes widened in absolute shock as he examined the blade, stunned to find a ghostly artifact that could actually be used 7 times. When Mo Lin asked if he would buy it, the man shook his head, admitting that the item was far too valuable for his modest shop to afford. However, he offered to act as a middleman, certain there would be buyers. Once Mo Lin nodded, the owner began shouting to the crowd. He announced a brand new ghostly artifact with 7 uses for sale, and in less than 10 seconds, the entire courtyard went silent. In an instant, we see Mo Lin surrounded by a crowd, with people shouting in disbelief that a ghostly artifact could actually have 7 uses. The owner handed the dagger back to him, telling the young man that since he'd gathered the crowd, the rest was up to him. Mo Lin nodded calmly, holding up the small blade to show everyone that this low-level artifact truly did possess 7 full uses. He then wondered to himself, if an item with limited uses is considered a masterpiece, what rank would a permanent artifact even hold? Upon hearing his casual mention of permanent artifacts, the crowd collectively gasped. After all, who had ever seen such a legendary thing? Such an item would be a priceless treasure, and looking at the chattering crowd, he realized these people had no frame of reference. It seemed they couldn't even conceive of a permanent tool, so he brought the conversation back to reality, asking what this dagger was worth. The owner suggested that for a masterpiece like this, he could likely fetch 20 to 30,000 spirit coins, a figure that pleasantly surprised him. He hadn't expected such a low-level item to sell for so much, but when he asked if anyone would buy it, the crowd fell silent. It wasn't that they didn't want it, but rather that they were simply too poor, until a woman in a cheap house stepped forward to break the silence. She asked for his price, and Mo Lin, noting her commanding presence, decided to test his luck by asking for 32,000 spirit coins. The woman, Hong Yinxuan, agreed immediately, and his first thought was that he had definitely set the price too low. He knew she looked wealthy, but he didn't expect her to pay 32,000 coins without even attempting to haggle. Just then, a blue-haired man interrupted, stating he also wanted the artifact, prompting Yinxuan to ask Zhao Xiaoqiang what he was playing at. Xiaoqiang replied that it was nothing personal. He simply wanted the tool, and who wouldn't want a masterpiece like this for themselves? Yinxuan grew angry, pointing out they had already agreed on a price, but Xiaoqiang cut her off, noting that no money had changed hands yet. He claimed the deal wasn't final and offered 35,000, causing Yinxuan to fall silent, knowing she couldn't compete with the Zhao family's wealth. She prepared to leave, but Mo Lin stepped forward to stop her, telling the beautiful lady not to be in such a hurry to go. He explained that he was a man of his word, and since he had promised her the artifact, he wouldn't break his promise for a higher bid. He handed the dagger to a stunned Yinxuan, who clearly hadn't expected to meet someone with such a high sense of integrity in a place like this. She immediately handed over the 32,000 spirit coins, while Zhao Xiaoqiang watched the deal conclude with a look of pure disappointment. As he prepared to leave and try his luck elsewhere, Mo Lin called out to him, asking if he was really going so soon. Xiaoqiang pointed out that the artifact was already sold, but Mo Lin just smiled, telling him not to rush since he had another one. Everyone present was stunned once again. Another masterpiece? This guy's luck was starting to seem a bit suspicious, to be honest. Xiaoqiang looked at the sword on Mo Lin's waist and asked if he was selling that, but the young man quickly waved him off. He pulled out a pair of scissors instead, and as Xiaoqiang examined the tool, he asked with a smirk if this was also a masterpiece. He insisted he only wanted top-tier items, and Mo Lin gave him a confident smile, guaranteeing that this was exactly what he wanted. He explained that this artifact was just like the previous one, with 7 full uses, though Xiaoqiang remained a bit skeptical at first. However, the moment he held the scissors, all doubt vanished. It truly was a masterpiece capable of being used 7 times. He immediately asked for the price, and upon hearing it was also 32,000 coins, he agreed to the deal without hesitation. Meanwhile, Hong Yinxuan's expression darkened. She had truly believed she'd met a man of high integrity and noble character. It turned out he was just worried about losing a customer, and as she turned to leave, Mo Lin called out to her once more. He asked the beautiful lady if she wanted another masterpiece, pulling out a spherical artifact that left Yinxuan absolutely speechless. She wondered where on earth he was getting all these treasures, but since she was out of coins, she simply shook her head. Feeling a bit disappointed, he turned his hopeful gaze back to Xiaoqiang, but the man hesitated and politely declined the offer. It wasn't that he didn't want it, but even his deep pockets had a limit, leaving Mo Lin to ask the surrounding crowd instead. He waited for a while, but with no one responding, he realized he wouldn't be making another sale today and packed his things. We then follow him as he wanders over to the ghost market in the Sifong courtyard, using his ghost eye skill to inspect the spirits. His attention was quickly captured by a common ghost tucked away in a corner, which possessed a very peculiar passive skill. The skill allowed a ghost to be completely unafraid of the sun, an ability so absurdly powerful that it left him in total shock. We must remember that ghosts are naturally terrified of the sun. Ordinary spirits never appear during the day, and even the more powerful ones can only manifest in places where they are shielded by shadows. Just then, a young girl approached, asking if he wanted to buy her ghost. Before he could even answer, a neighboring stall owner chimed in, dismissively claiming her spirit was just a useless, everyday ghost with no real value. Hearing the man's harsh words, the girl lowered her head in resignation, fully aware that her spirit lacked the prestige of the more combat-oriented ones. Mo Lin ignored the merchant entirely and spoke directly to the girl, telling her he would take the ghost. She stared at him, wondering if she had misheard. He simply pulled out 1,000 spirit coins and handed them over, asking if it was enough. The girl excitedly replied that it was more than enough. Once the transaction was complete, he raised his hand toward the spirit and instantly took it into his possession. After that, we see him driving off to the luxury villa Xian Yun had prepared for him. As soon as he stepped inside, he couldn't wait to release the everyday ghost and place his hand on its head. He activated the Book of Rectification to suppress the spirit. A notification appeared. He had successfully acquired the Fearless Ghost trait. With this new ability, he could now summon his ghosts at any time, regardless of the sun. Suddenly, the ghost messenger Li Shui appeared in the room. The spirit bowed, asking if his master had summoned him. Mo Lin nodded and told him to come closer so he could heal his wounds. Li Shui insisted he didn't want Mo Lin to waste coins on him, but the young man didn't waste time with words and produced 10,000 spirit coins. He converted the coins into spiritual energy and guided it into Li Shui's body. Soon, the spirit's injuries were completely healed, and he thanked his master deeply. Mo Lin waved off the thanks, telling him to stay at the villa for a few days as there might be tasks for him to handle soon. Li Shui bowed respectfully, ready to follow any command, and then left the room. It was at that exact moment that Mo Lin's phone began to ring. The voice of Qing Yun came through the line, informing him that the people who had been selling ghost messengers at the shrine would return in a week. He warned Mo Lin to prepare in advance if he planned to find them. Hearing this, our protagonist immediately sharpened his focus. The ghost hunters were finally going to show themselves. He knew he had to prepare thoroughly to see who was bold enough to commit such crimes. He wondered who would dare to capture the messengers of the Night Bureau. After hanging up, his phone rang again. It was Li Binyan calling this time. As soon as he picked up, Li Binyan asked him to come to the Ghost Control Society headquarters tomorrow, as there was a matter that required his help. Mo Lin agreed readily, assuming he was about to be assigned a new ghost hunting mission. It seemed it was time to increase his strength. And so, he summoned Qin Shi. When the spirit asked for his orders, Mo Lin smiled and told him he was getting an upgrade. He immediately produced 20,000 spirit coins, which ignited with a sudden, thunderous boom as they transformed into raw energy. As the spiritual aura slowly flowed into Qin Shi's body, the spirit let out a piercing scream that would have terrified any ordinary observer. We see his gaze soften as his form began to darken and solidify, eventually appearing as tangible as a living person. Feeling himself ascend to the nightmare realm, Qin Shi immediately bowed in deep gratitude, thanking his master for the cultivation. After a moment of thought, Mo Lin told him he no longer needed to stay inside the soul-shaking book. He was to remain by his side. Qin Shi accepted excitedly, realizing his status was now far above the other spirits trapped within the book. A promotion of sorts. Next, Mo Lin summoned Chu Xing and produced another 20,000 spirit coins, repeating the exact same process as before. As Chu Xing's body solidified, he clenched his fists in pure excitement. He had actually reached the nightmare realm just like that. He also bowed to express his thanks, and Mo Lin gave a simple nod, instructing Chu Xing to also remain by his side from now on. On the following day, he arrived at the Ghost Control Society as planned. Li Binyan met him and handed over a formal business card. This was his official identification for the society. With it, he could call upon their help regardless of the situation he faced. He accepted it and asked if there was anything else. Li Binyan looked a bit embarrassed as she asked if he had any more high-grade ghost tools. It turns out that his sale of a top-tier artifact at the Sifong courtyard yesterday had already become the talk of the society's inner circle. He quite casually produced a small knife artifact and handed it to her, noting that despite their friendship, business was still business. Sensing the immense power radiating from the weapon, Li Binyan smiled and pulled out a thick stack of currency to finalize the deal. She offered 35,000 spirit coins for the blade. After taking the payment, Mo Lin mentioned that if her friends needed tools, they could call him. Li Binyan raised an eyebrow, wondering just how many of these rare artifacts he actually had. Just then, the door opened. A man in a suit suddenly entered the room. Seeing him, Li Binyan told Mo Lin that their business was done and he could head out. However, just as Mo Lin prepared to leave, the man in the suit blocked his path, asking if he had any more ghost tools for sale. Li Binyan frowned at the intrusion, reminding the man, Chu Hanliang, that Mo Lin was her friend and shouldn't be bothered. Chu Hanliang simply brushed her off, turning his greedy gaze toward Mo Lin to demand more spiritual artifacts. A charming fellow, clearly. Mo Lin reached out and produced another tool, this one shaped like a silver needle, which made Chu Hanliang's eyes light up with hunger. He snatched it right out of Mo Lin's hand, examining the high-grade artifact for a moment before praising its exquisite quality. Without a word of payment, he tucked the tool away, prompting Mo Lin to calmly state the price, 32,000 spirit coins. When the man tried to walk away, Mo Lin raised a hand to stop him, repeating the price with firm, unwavering intent. Chu Hanliang's smile vanished instantly. He suggested that Mo Lin should simply give him the tool as a gift instead. He promised to help Mo Lin rise through the ranks of the society, but Mo Lin refused, demanding either the money or the tool. Chu Hanliang's brow furrowed as he argued that as future colleagues in the society, a gift shouldn't be such a problem. Seeing that Mo Lin wouldn't budge, Chu Hanliang decided to take a harder approach, accusing the young man of being difficult. With a sharp word, Chu Hanliang summoned his contracted ghost, and we see the spirit manifest with a dark, menacing energy. The ghost locked onto Mo Lin's aura immediately. Chu Hanliang began to say that giving the tool was just a way to make friends. But before he could finish, a red shadow appeared and sent the terror rank ghost flying, shaking the entire building with the impact. Chun-Shi let out a roar, releasing a nightmare rank pressure that made Li Binyan's heart skip a beat in pure shock. She glanced at the struggling Chu Hanliang and gave a cold snort, stepping back to show she had no intention of helping him. Chun-Shi grabbed Chu Hanliang by the throat. The man found he couldn't resist at all, given the massive gap in their power. Soon, other members of the Ghost Control Society came rushing into the room, only to freeze when they saw the nightmare rank spirit. They stood there, utterly lost, as a wave of black energy suddenly swept through the room and engulfed everyone present. In an instant, their bodies went rigid as heavy iron chains manifested, tightening around their necks with lethal, bone-chilling precision. Following the direction of those iron chains, we see yet another nightmare rank ghost appearing. It turns out Chu Xing has made his move. In that single moment, he holds the lives of everyone present in his grasp, leaving even the usually calm Li Binyan feeling a chill down her spine. With Mo Lin possessing 2 nightmare rank ghosts, he is effectively peerless in all of Yinchuan, a fact that leaves Chu Hanliang utterly stunned. He wonders how on earth nightmare rank spirits became as common as cabbages, just as Chun-Shi speaks up, asking if she should kill everyone present. As soon as those words leave her lips, a collective gasp fills the room, the air growing heavy with sudden, cold dread. The sheer bloodlust of a nightmare rank ghost is terrifying. Chu Hanliang's heart skips a beat as he realizes he truly doesn't want to die today. He quickly apologizes, offering to pay the full price for the ghost tool, prompting Mo Lin to give a simple wave of his hand to release him. Chun-Shi lets go immediately, and Chu Hanliang hits the floor hard, though he's far too panicked to worry about any minor injuries. He hastily pulls out 32,000 spirit coins and hands them over, offering a profuse apology for his earlier behavior. His attitude is now as respectful as can be, but as Chun-Shi prepares to retreat behind Mo Lin, she accidentally brushes against his hair. She flinches violently and drops to her knees, begging for forgiveness for her unintentional offense while the onlookers watch in total disbelief. They wonder how a nightmare rank ghost could be so humble and what kind of terrifying methods Mo Lin must have used to tame her. Li Binyan swallows hard, wondering how he trained such spirits, but Mo Lin ignores the stares and calmly tells Chun-Shi it's fine. Relieved, Chun-Shi and Chu Xing vanish instantly, while Chu Hanliang quickly invents a clumsy excuse about his sick wife to make his escape. He stammers out his departure, clearly desperate to be anywhere else, and flees the room with his dignity, what's left of it, in tatters. Li Binyan barks at the remaining crowd to get back to work, and once the room is clear, she finally turns to Mo Lin with a question. She asks if those two ghosts represent the full extent of his power, to which he casually replies that they do not. He explains that these two are merely the tip of the iceberg, a statement that leaves Li Binyan's jaw practically hitting the floor. She wonders if he has something even stronger than nightmare rank, feeling immensely relieved that they are allies rather than enemies. Finally, she asks tentatively if he is still willing to take on small ghost hunting missions, and with a smile, he tells her that of course he is. Mo Lin tells her to send any ghost hunting tasks his way. The missions themselves don't matter as much to him as the act of catching the ghosts. Capturing spirits with unique abilities is his real priority, so Li Binyan pulls out her phone and offers to add him to the Yunchuan Ghost Tamer group. She explains that tasks are posted there regularly for him to pick, and as soon as he joins, a message pops up about the western suburbs. A level 3 tamer named Yun Lin is in danger and needs immediate help from anyone nearby. Mo Lin rubs his chin, deep in thought. He wonders why there's trouble during broad daylight, while Li Binyan, noticing his interest, tentatively asks if he might handle this personally. He agrees readily enough, but just as he's about to leave, he realizes the Ghost Tamer Society could help him gather some much-needed information. He turns back and asks her to track down a ghost named Zishang Qingru, a request that leaves Li Binyan looking quite surprised. She asks if that spirit hasn't already dissipated, a question that hits Mo Lin like a physical blow. Dissipated? How could that be? He rushes forward, demanding answers with an intensity that clearly startles Li Binyan, causing her to jump back in alarm. She quickly explains that the ghost came to the society for help a year ago, but the leadership couldn't reach an agreement to assist her. They refused her, and since no one has heard from her since, she assumes the ghost is dead. Mo Lin presses her on what kind of trouble she was in. Li Binyan braces herself and explains that it's a complicated matter, and she only knows a few of the specific details involved. It seems she was being hunted by the spirits of the ghost realm and sought protection. Mo Lin's expression darkens at the mention of that place. He grinds his teeth in silent fury, remembering how the night pocket ghosts and the ghost realm have always been bitter, sworn enemies. Even here in the living world, those spirits are still haunting them, a persistent obsession that he finds as exhausting as it is infuriating. If he had already regained his monarch-level strength, he would have wiped them out by now, leaving Li Binyan watching his trembling rage and confusion. After a moment, he composes himself just enough to ask if she is absolutely certain that Zishang Qingru has truly vanished. She admits it's only a guess and promises to investigate immediately, vowing to notify him the very moment she finds any concrete information. He nods, telling her to simply call him with whatever she finds, and then he finally makes his departure from the office. A short while later, he drives out to the school in the western suburbs where Yun Lin is located, and we watch as he steps onto the campus. From a distance, we see a crowd surrounding Yun Lin, and we can just barely hear her voice through gritted teeth, asking why she should hand over the ghost she caught. A rather stout man answers her with shameless arrogance, claiming they had their eyes on that ghost for a long time, and she was simply faster than them. He insists that since it was their intended prey, she ought to return it. Yun Lin frowns, realizing that being kind today simply isn't an option. She glances around anxiously, hoping someone responded to the distress signal she sent to the group, and her face lights up the moment she spots Mo Lin. Mo Lin ignores the rest of the crowd and walks straight toward her, asking quite bluntly what exactly is going on with these people. She explains they are members of the Zilong Society who are trying to steal the ghost she captured yesterday. Mo Lin, however, looks a bit puzzled. He asks what kind of organization the Zilong Society is, and she clarifies that like their own Ghost Tamer Society, it is an official government-sanctioned group. The only difference, she notes, is that they mostly handle minor chores, and then she looks behind him, asking where the rest of the backup is. He answers quite calmly that there is no one else, only him, which causes Yun Lin to panic slightly at the thought of facing them alone with just Mo Lin. To her, that seems no better than having no help at all, and the fat man, Pang Hu, lets out a laugh like a pig, asking if she called him here just to get beaten up. Yun Lin lets out a cold snort and tries to signal Mo Lin with her eyes to run away, but he completely ignores her warning. Instead, he looks over the opposition, only 3 level 2 tamers and 4 level 1 tamers, and turns back to Yun Lin with a look of genuine confusion. He asks why a level 3 tamer like her would be afraid of such a group, but before she can answer, Pang Hu cuts in with a smug grin. He points triumphantly at the sun, noting that it doesn't matter how strong she is if she can't actually summon her ghosts in broad daylight. Yun Lin's eyes burn with rage. If it weren't for the fact that ghosts can't manifest under the sun, she would have taught them a lesson long ago. Mo Lin nods, as if a light bulb has finally gone off, and he simply tells Yun Lin to leave everything here to him. Pang Hu laughs dismissively, asking if this kid really plans to stop their entire group alone, but Mo Lin merely waves a hand and activates a ghost technique. The soul chain appears out of thin air and lashes out violently against Pang Hu, whose agonizing scream echoes across the square like a slaughtered pig. The men standing behind Pang Hu scramble backward in terror at the sight, while Yun Lin watches the scene in utter disbelief. She wonders how he could possibly use a ghost technique under the sun. Normally, he couldn't, but he did just acquire a very special ability. It was a truly formidable trick, the fearless skill, which allows a ghost to ignore the sun and move freely in broad daylight. But honestly, using such a power against a group of low-level thugs like Pang, who felt like a bit of an overkill. After parting ways with Yun Lin, Mo Lin prepared to drive home. However, he soon realized he had been wandering this same road for over an hour without finding an exit. He wondered if a ghost was blocking his path, and upon stepping out of the car, he saw a thick white mist where the road had vanished, replaced by dirt slopes. He questioned exactly when he had entered such an environment, but soon detected a trace of ghostly energy in the air and began to follow its trail. As he walked, a terrifying, buzzing sound of weeping reached his ears, and following the noise, we see him spot a woman crouching by a large rock. She seemed to hear his footsteps and flinched visibly. To be perfectly honest, when she turned around, she was quite a frightening sight. Instinctively, Mo Lin drew his long sword and held it before him, demanding to know why she was blocking his way, while the female ghost merely muttered to herself. She cried out for her child, swearing to make those who took him pay with their lives, and she looked ready to risk everything in a desperate attack until she suddenly froze. She called out, "Lord Mo Lin," leaving him a bit stunned. He wondered who this ghost could be, as she clearly recognized him by name. Since he wasn't wearing his official robes, he told himself that no ghost would call him Lord unless they were already well acquainted. The ghost anxiously identified herself as Yin Xiaohua, asking if he remembered the matter of the ghost mother, and it suddenly clicked for him. He was in the underworld. Back when he was practicing his hidden ghost arts, the first spirit he had ever subdued was the ghost mother, and that was only possible with Yin Xiaohua's help. Puzzled, he asked if she had blocked his path on purpose because she knew it was him, but Yin Xiaohua simply shook her head while glancing around nervously. She explained that it wasn't intentional. Her resentment was simply so heavy that it had warped the surrounding environment, inadvertently trapping him there. With a look of utter helplessness, she pleaded for his help, explaining that a group of strangers had snatched her child and she had no way to find him. Yin Xiaohua seemed terrified that he might refuse her request, as she had nowhere else to turn. She vowed that if he helped find her child, she would be willing to let her soul dissipate. Mo Lin nodded and simply told her to come with him. Upon hearing this, she transformed into a cloud of mist and attached herself to his sword. Shortly after, he pulled out his phone to message his group. He asked who had the best information regarding recent ghost activity, and a user named Feng Mingyu quickly replied, asking if he was looking to hunt. Feng Mingyu asked if he wanted to buy a ghost instead, suggesting they chat privately, so Mo Lin added him and sent a simple greeting. He explained he was looking for a kidnapped ghost child, and the reply came quickly. Meet at Wanling KTV tonight, and he would lead the way. After putting away his phone, he drove home, where Li Shui appeared the moment he walked in to report that someone had sneaked inside. With a darkened expression, Mo Lin asked if the intruder's identity was known, and Li Shui immediately offered a solution. She had left a trace of her energy on the intruder and offered to track them. Mo Lin nodded, telling her to find out who it was. He warned her to be careful, especially if the ghost realm was involved, and to prioritize her own safety before she departed. Around 7 that evening, we see him arrive at Wanling KTV, where he wasted no time asking Feng Mingyu if the child could be found. Feng Mingyu smiled, claiming he was the right person for the job and offering to introduce his uncle, a man with incredible connections. He insisted that nothing in Yunchuan stayed hidden from his uncle, leading Mo Lin toward a black market hidden beneath the KTV. Just then, a man brushed past him and bumped his arm. To be honest, it was quite annoying given how wide the path was. He realized something was wrong and checked his pockets, only to find that his 10,000 Ming coins had vanished, stolen, without a doubt. Noticing that Mo Lin had stopped, Feng Mingyu turned back to ask what was wrong, and Mo Lin looked toward the fleeing man. He whispered that his coins were gone and he intended to get them back. Before his guide could respond, he headed straight for the thief. Feng Mingyu chased after him anxiously, shouting that thieves here always had powerful backers and the money was as good as gone. Ignoring the warnings, Mo Lin continued forward with a calm determination that suggested he wasn't one to let things slide. After crossing an intersection, he spotted the man ducking into a small building and followed him right to the entrance. Inside, a group of men glared at him fiercely, while the thief stood arrogantly at the back, flaunting the stolen coins. The thief was even swinging the bag of 10,000 coins around, but as Mo Lin tried to enter, a man in black blocked his path. The man demanded to know what he was doing there, and Mo Lin pointed calmly at the thief, stating that his money had been stolen. The man reacted with immediate hostility, telling him to watch his mouth and warning that accusing people would carry a heavy price. The moment those words left his mouth, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Feng Mingyu hurried over, explaining this was a black market and asking the men not to take offense, but the man in black only offered a threatening smile. He sneered that if this was Feng's friend, he should have kept him on a shorter leash, as offending Lord Sun on his own turf carried heavy consequences. Feng Mingyu apologized profusely, promising to take his friend away immediately, and he reached out to pull Mo Lin toward the exit. However, Mo Lin didn't budge, stating firmly that his Ming coins had been stolen by these people. Feng whispered a frantic warning that this was Sun Tao's territory. He pleaded with Mo Lin to stop causing trouble since their opponent was a rank for Ghost Tamer, but Mo Lin acted as if he hadn't heard a single word. He simply continued to stare coldly at the group, prompting the man in black to lose his patience and summon his contracted ghost right then and there. Seeing this, the others in the hall followed suit, and as Mo Lin realized these people wouldn't listen to reason, he told Feng he would settle this in 10 minutes. Realizing a fight was inevitable, Feng Mingyu panicked and pulled out his phone to send a desperate plea for help to their group chat. He shouted digitally that Mo Lin was in trouble at the black market, and Yun Lin immediately replied, demanding to know exactly what was happening. Feng explained that Mo Lin's 10,000 coins were stolen by Lord Sun's men and a brawl was starting. He begged for someone to come before Mo Lin was killed. Yun Lin replied in a panic, noting that Lord Sun was a powerful rank 4 ghost tamer and urging Feng to stop Mo Lin from doing anything impulsive. Feng Mingyu, nearly in tears at this point, replied that there was absolutely no stopping him. The man was simply too determined. Ling Shi joined the chat, wondering if all ghost tamers were this aggressive nowadays, and decided to head over since she knew Lord Sun personally. Yin Lin was overjoyed by Ling Shi's message, urging her to hurry and use her connections to smooth things over before it was too late. Feng Mingyu sent one last frantic reply, telling them to hurry or they would only be arriving in time to collect Mo Lin's body. Meanwhile, back in the hall, the group's contracted ghosts were already lunging toward Mo Lin, and Feng grit his teeth, preparing to jump in and save him. Suddenly, a series of blood-curdling ghostly shrieks erupted, one after another, filling the room with a sound of pure terror. To his absolute shock, Feng Mingyu watched as the ghosts surrounding Mo Lin began to flee as if they had just encountered their natural predator. He rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. The ghosts were indeed terrified, and he even saw 3 of them scramble away in total retreat. In a flash, the ghosts were sliced in half by a blue light and vanished into thin air as we see Mo Lin wielding his sword and fists with lethal precision. His movements were as fluid as running water, and in less than 10 seconds, more than half of the 20 contracted ghosts had been utterly destroyed. Feng Mingyu stared at the long sword in Mo Lin's hand, muttering to himself about how powerful this ghostly energy was, when something shifted. Suddenly, a man appeared behind Mo Lin, lunging at him with a spiral-shaped ghost weapon. Feng was certain Mo Lin was about to be seriously injured. Instead, Mo Lin swung his sword back with a sharp whistle, and with a single strike, the man's arm holding the weapon was instantly severed. After dealing with almost every contracted ghost, only one remained floating in the air, possessing a rather interesting set of ghostly abilities. Mo Lin decided to capture it rather than kill it, but the ghost, sensing the danger, tried to flee back to its master's side. However, with a simple wave of his hand, Mo Lin suppressed the ghost and sealed it within the ghost suppression book, triggering a notification of success. He had acquired the teleportation ability, allowing him to instantly appear at the furthest point within his line of sight. Meanwhile, a nearby man froze. The man felt his connection to his ghost snap and screamed at Mo Lin, demanding to know by what right he had stolen his contracted spirit. He demanded the ghost back, but Mo Lin simply kicked him aside before turning to the crowd and asking if anyone else felt like stepping forward. The hall fell into a heavy silence as no one dared to speak. Feng Mingyu felt completely stunned by the sheer absurdity of the situation. He had imagined many possible outcomes, but he never expected Mo Lin to single-handedly wipe out over 20 contracted ghosts like it was nothing. By now, Mo Lin had walked into the back room, where the thief was hiding in a corner, his face pale and his previous arrogance completely gone. The thief begged for mercy, trembling as he handed back the 10,000 Ming coins, while Feng Mingyu stood by, feeling utterly lost. He reminded Mo Lin that he had just trashed Lord Sun's territory and that the man was undoubtedly on his way. Sure enough, a moment later, he arrived. A middle-aged man appeared at the entrance, surveying the wreckage of the hall with a cold gaze before demanding to know what Mo Lin thought he was doing. Mo Lin calmly explained that Sun's men had stolen his coins and he had simply given them a small lesson, prompting Sun Tao to let out a cold snort. Sun Tao asked if Mo Lin didn't think he had gone too far, but before he could finish, Mo Lin rested his blade right on Sun Tao's shoulder. With a chilling smile, Mo Lin replied that he didn't think he'd been excessive at all, warning Sun Tao not to provoke him while he was in a bad mood. Sun Tao raised his hand, fully intending to snap the blade resting on his shoulder, but the moment his fingers brushed the cold steel, he froze. The contracted ghost within him recoiled in pure terror, whispering a desperate warning. Do not provoke him, or you will die. Do not touch him. It was a terror-class spirit, yet it was trembling with fear. Nearby, Feng Mingyu watched the exchange and swallowed hard, his nerves on edge. Mo Lin was truly formidable, showing no fear even when facing a level 4 Ghost Master. In fact, he seemed to be actively provoking him. Just as Feng Mingyu braced for a violent clash, Sun Tao suddenly forced a fawning smile and admitted that Mo Lin hadn't gone too far at all. Mo Lin sheathed his long sword and coldly warned Sun Tao to control his people, or next time, he wouldn't mind teaching the boss a lesson too. Sun Tao quickly agreed, showing not a hint of anger in his submissive tone, which was more than his loyal subordinates could bear to watch. One lackey stepped forward, reminding Sun Tao that Mo Lin had trashed their territory and stolen their ghosts, only to be met with a swift backhand. After Sun Tao sent his man flying, Mo Lin turned to Feng Mingyu and casually asked if killing people in the black market carried any consequences. Feng Mingyu quickly replied that there were none, while Sun Tao broke into a cold sweat, realizing the gravity of the situation. It was obvious that Mo Lin's question was meant for Sun Tao's ears, a quiet reminder that if he crossed the line, blood would certainly be spilled. Seeing that Sun Tao had learned his place, Mo Lin led the dazed Feng Mingyu away, who immediately pulled out his phone to check the group chat. The chat was exploding with messages asking for updates, so Feng Mingyu quickly tagged Ling Shi, telling her there was no need for her to come. The group was flooded with questions, with everyone asking if Mo Lin had been dealt with or if Sun Tao had finally finished him off. Feng Mingyu couldn't help but smile bitterly at the screen as he typed back, assuring everyone that Mo Lin was perfectly fine. He explained that even that old fox Sun Tao didn't dare touch him, especially after Mo Lin had single-handedly dismantled his entire operation. He declared Mo Lin to be practically invincible before putting his phone away, ignoring the wave of shock he had just sent through the community. Then, looking at the sword at Mo Lin's waist, he curiously asked what grade of ghostly energy the weapon possessed, but Mo Lin remained silent. To be honest, Mo Lin saw no reason to discuss the affairs of the underworld with those of the living, so Feng Mingyu wisely changed the subject. He asked if Mo Lin's contracted ghost was also terror class, but when Mo Lin shook his head, Feng Mingyu gasped, wondering if it was actually nightmare class. Mo Lin didn't offer a direct confirmation, instead urging his companion to drop the gossip and focus on the information he was supposed to find. Snapping out of his daze, Feng Mingyu quickly led the way, and before long, the two of them arrived at an inconspicuous little shop. Inside sat an old man, whom Feng Mingyu introduced as his uncle, Lu Feng, who paused what he was doing to look up. Lu Feng smiled and greeted his nephew, noting it had been a while, to which Feng Mingyu gave a casual, polite reply. He then introduced Mo Lin as his friend, and upon hearing the name, Lu Feng leaned in close to inspect the young man thoroughly. The old man recognized him immediately, mentioning Mo Lin's recent chaos at the Qian family and his near destruction of the Jade Ghost Society headquarters. He even knew about the high-grade ghost tools Mo Lin had sold, making it clear that this uncle was indeed a formidable information broker. Lu Feng asked what they needed, and Mo Lin got straight to the point, asking who had recently captured a certain ghost child. After hearing the request, Lu Feng pulled out a ledger, promising to take a look through his records for any relevant leads. He flipped through the pages with practiced speed until he found the entry, carefully transcribing the details onto a small slip of paper. He handed the paper over, stating the price was 1,000 Ming coins with no room for bargaining, a fair price for such secrets. Without a moment's hesitation, Mo Lin handed over the coins and opened the note to see what the old man had written. The note revealed that the ghost child had been taken by disciples of the Qidao Temple, a fact Feng Mingyu vouched for immediately. He assured Mo Lin that his uncle's intel was always 100% accurate, prompting Mo Lin to ask for the temple's location. Feng Mingyu's eyes widened in shock as he begged Mo Lin to tell him he wasn't planning on causing another scene there. Mo Lin gave a helpless shrug, claiming he wasn't looking for trouble, but merely wanted to retrieve something that belonged to him. Feng Mingyu clearly didn't believe him, explaining with a pout that Qidao Temple held a very high status within the Yunchuan region. He explained that while the Jin Ancestral Hall housed both ghost masters and Taoists, Qidao Temple was composed entirely of pure Taoist priests. There were about a dozen of them in total. Mo Lin pondered this, realizing he had never dealt with Taoists, despite his own master's legacy. His master had once been a revered celestial master in the living world, a branch of Taoism itself, a thought that left him momentarily silent. We learned that the Qidao Temple is home to orthodox Taoists who specialize in ghost hunting techniques, earning their living by capturing spirits for others. They occasionally dabble in other side businesses, such as selling the ghosts they catch, a detail Mo Lin noted with a simple nod before saying he understood. As he turned to leave, Feng Mingyu watched his back in speechless frustration, certain that Mo Lin hadn't truly listened to a single word of his warning. Fearing the situation might spiral out of control, Feng Mingyu decided to follow him anyway, and soon they arrived at the main gates of the Qidao Temple. Before Mo Lin could even make a move, a young man guarding the gate let out a terrified shriek, calling for his senior brother to save him. He screamed about a ghost, a terrifyingly malevolent one, as he bolted back into the temple, leaving Mo Lin standing there, looking around in total confusion. There wasn't a single ghost in sight, only himself. He began to wonder if the guard was actually referring to him, and if he really looked that menacing. He recalled how people mistook him for a ghost when he first returned to the living world, and now it was happening again, which was a bit insulting, really. Just then, the young man returned, leading a stout senior brother who was loudly scolding him for his lack of composure as they approached the gate. The senior brother mocked his cowardice, reminding him that as Taoists and ghost hunters, being frightened by a spirit was an absolute embarrassment to their order. With a cold snort, the stout monk prepared to step outside, but the very next second, he let out a vulgar cry of shock, realizing there was indeed a ghost. Terrified, the senior brother scrambled backward and barked at the younger disciple to shut the gates immediately to keep the spirit from breaking in. The young man muttered a reply, suggesting that closing the doors might be useless, as we see the true nature of the Qidao Temple disciples' training. Every disciple is taught a basic technique called spirit observation, which allows them to perceive and judge the strength of a ghost by its aura. The senior brother had just used this technique, and the sheer ferocity of the ghostly energy he sensed was enough to leave him gasping for air. At that moment, Mo Lin raised his hand and gently knocked on the door, politely asking if anyone was home, a gesture the senior brother found strangely civil. Despite the ghost's manners, the monk was shivering uncontrollably, having never encountered a spirit bold enough to actually knock on a temple door. To him, it was like a mouse knocking on a cat's door, so he frantically ordered the younger disciple to go and fetch their eldest senior brother at once. The eldest senior brother, who had been resting, heard the commotion and marched to the front courtyard, demanding to know why they were making such a scene. He scolded them for being reduced to such a state by a single ghost and ordered them to open the gate, even as the stout monk whispered a frantic warning. The senior brother insisted it was a truly fierce ghost, but Wan Yu, radiating righteous energy, roared for them to open the gate immediately. He argued that if word got out they were afraid, they'd be a laughingstock, leaving the stout monk no choice but to open the door. The moment Mo Lin stepped into the courtyard, Wan Yu and the others instinctively recoiled, realizing this was indeed a terrifyingly powerful spirit. The ghostly energy was overwhelming. Wan Yu sensed that this was the effect even while the stranger was actively trying to suppress his power. If he hadn't been holding back, the scene would have been far more horrific, and by now, Wan Yu had completely abandoned any thought of a fight. He didn't just see the surging energy. He noticed 5 distinct spirits being held within the man's body, causing him to quickly avert his gaze. Summoning his courage, he asked Mo Lin what he wanted, to which Mo Lin calmly asked if they had captured a ghost child recently. Wan Yu nodded in admission, and Mo Lin explained the child's mother was worried, offering to pay them in spirit money for the boy's return. Wan Yu's face turned pale with indignation. A ghost was brazenly demanding a prisoner back, showing absolutely no respect for the Qidao Temple. He wondered what they took Taoists for, while Mo Lin remained confused as to why a simple request made them look so miserable. Their expressions were as foul as if they'd tasted something bitter, even though he had politely offered to pay for the child's release. When Mo Lin asked again if they would comply, Wan Yu's heart skipped a beat, feeling as though he were being directly threatened by a spirit. It was a humiliating position for a Taoist, yet he still ordered his disciple to go and fetch the little ghost they had caught days ago. Soon, a disciple brought out a dark gray jar sealed with a talisman, which Wan Yu carefully peeled away to release the captive. A small, dark figure drifted timidly out of the jar, a tiny ghost child who looked no older than 7 or 8 years old. The boy shrank back in fear the moment he saw the Taoists, but his eyes widened in shock and relief when he spotted Mo Lin. He cried out, "Lord Mo Lin," a title that only confirmed Wan Yu's suspicion that he was dealing with a ghost of significant status. The little ghost ran to Mo Lin, thanking him profusely for the rescue, while Mo Lin called out for Yin Xiaohua to come forward. He told her he had found her son. Yin Xiaohua appeared instantly, hugging the boy while tearfully scolding him for wandering off. She reminded him that if Lord Mo Lin hadn't intervened, he never would have survived being captured by these stinky Taoists. She shot Wan Yu one last fierce glare before leading her son back into the sword, and Mo Lin then handed over 2,000 spirit coins. As Mo Lin turned to leave, Wan Yu watched his retreating back in silence, while the stout monk remarked that the ghost was surprisingly well-mannered. The junior asked if they were really just letting him go, but Wan Yu coldly declared that they would certainly reclaim their lost dignity today. He ordered his disciple to buy supplies for a grand ghost trapping array, intending to capture the spirit personally, a plan his junior enthusiastically supported. After leaving the Qidao Temple, Mo Lin ran into Feng Mingyu, who was rushing toward him and was visibly shocked to see him unharmed. He assured her that everything was settled, leaving Mingyu stunned that such a potentially explosive situation had been resolved so quietly. She had expected a violent clash with the Taoists, but it seemed she had worried for nothing as they walked away in peace. Mingyu then offered to buy him dinner, and since Mo Lin was indeed hungry after a long night, he followed her to a nearby restaurant. Upon entering, Mingyu's first instinct was to complain about how empty it was so early in the morning, while Mo Lin asked her a curious question. He asked if she was afraid of ghosts, causing her to look around warily, wondering if he had sensed something lurking in the shadows. Puffing out her chest, she claimed that as a ghost tamer she feared nothing, though Mo Lin calmly noted they had just walked into a ghost den. The moment he spoke, a dozen fierce spirits materialized in the room, and Mingyu instinctively pressed closer to Mo Lin's side for safety. He looked at her with an amused confusion, asking why she was clinging to him if she truly wasn't afraid of the supernatural. However, as she locked eyes with a disheveled female spirit, a flood of horrific, borrowed memories of a tragic death surged into her mind. Unable to withstand the intense mental assault, she doubled over and retched. This was no ordinary spirit, but a nightmare-class ghost. She felt certain they were doomed, but in that heartbeat, Mo Lin reached out and pulled her firmly behind his back to protect her. A deep crater instantly appeared where she had just been standing, the result of a sudden, invisible strike from the nightmare ghost. The restaurant dissolved around them, transforming into an open graveyard where rotting corpses began to crawl out from their muddy tombs. As the stench of decay filled the air, Mo Lin told her to stay calm, explaining that these horrors were merely illusions created by the spirit. Mingyu insisted through trembling breaths that she knew and wasn't scared, though her pale face suggested otherwise, much to Mo Lin's silent amusement. Mo Lin warned her not to summon her contract ghost, as it would only be devoured, and suggested she simply close her eyes if she felt too afraid. Obediently, Feng Mingyu shut her eyes tight and pressed herself against his back, not daring to move a single muscle. Seeing that she wouldn't summon her spirit, the ghost let out a frustrated, blood-curdling roar, while Mo Lin calmly activated his ghost glasses. The spirit was identified as Hong Yi, a nightmare-class entity whose trick was to craft illusions from a person's deepest, most primal fears. Looking around at the desolate graveyard, Mo Lin realized that this specific nightmare must be the thing Mingyu feared most in the world. He decided this nightmare-class ghost would make an excellent addition to his collection, and in the next heartbeat, Chun-Shi materialized before him. With a casual wave of his hand, Chun-Shi shattered the illusion and bowed, asking his master to wait while he handled this minor nuisance. As Chun-Shi charged forward, Mo Lin pulled Mingyu toward the exit, and when she finally opened her eyes, she was met with a startling sight. We see her confusion as she watched two nightmare-class ghosts locked in a violent struggle, leading her to ask if the newcomer belonged to him. Mo Lin simply nodded without offering a long explanation, instead rushing toward a nearby perilous-class spirit that was lingering in the fray. He unleashed his wind ghost technique, compressing the spirit into a small, manageable sphere before tucking it away for safekeeping. He then moved on to catch the next one, reasoning that while these spirits were low-level, they might still prove useful later on. Mingyu stood there completely stunned, while two terrifying nightmare ghosts were brawling. Mo Lin was busy hunting small fry like he was running errands. He didn't seem the least bit worried about his own spirit losing, and indeed, Chun-Shi was growing more ferocious, letting out a bone-chilling shriek. A moment later, Chun-Shi's claws pierced the enemy's chest, and he dragged the defeated spirit over to Mo Lin, presenting it as a trophy. With a flick of his wrist, Mo Lin sealed the ghost away, and a notification chimed to congratulate him on acquiring the Illusion Ghost Sacrifice. This new addition would generate 80 spirit coins a day, providing a steady, if modest, increase to his growing daily income. He couldn't help but reflect that compared to selling high-grade ghost tools for thousands, the book's passive output felt a bit slow at first. But then, a new line of text appeared in the Book of Righteous Ghosts. He had captured 5 spirits, and 5 more would trigger a change. If he captured 5 more, all spirit coin income would increase tenfold, a revelation that left even the usually calm Mo Lin utterly speechless. If all income increased tenfold, a single nightmare-class ghost would bring in 800 coins a day, and he currently had 3 of them. That meant a daily income of 2,400 coins. If he could just cultivate a few more, he would be absolutely wealthy. What Mo Lin didn't know was that the chubby senior brother from the temple had seen the fight with Hong Yi from a distance. The monk rushed back in a panic to find Wan Yu, breathlessly explaining that while he was out buying talismans, he had seen something incredible. He reported seeing the ghost that caused trouble at their temple fighting another nightmare-class entity, suggesting they swoop in to claim the spoils. Wan Yu hesitated, noting that the ghost seemed quite fierce and might be hard to capture, but the chubby monk was quick to insist. He had already prepared the talismans and argued that if they set up a ghost trapping array along the spirit's path, they would surely succeed. Wan Yu decided the plan was sound. To be honest, he couldn't resist the opportunity and told his brother to gather the others and their gear. And so, as Mo Lin and Mingyu finished cleaning up the mess and left the ghost hotel that night, they hadn't gone far before being intercepted. Wan Yu and his men suddenly blocked their path, with Wan Yu brandishing a wooden ring in one hand and a yellow talisman in the other. He began chanting rapidly while the others held red strings, forming a square formation to trap Mo Lin in the center. As Mo Lin watched in utter confusion, the chubby monk ran up and threw a basin of incense ash over him, prompting an immediate outburst. Mo Lin snapped, asking if he had lost his mind, while the monk stared back in disbelief that the ghost was completely unaffected. The monk even waved a talisman directly in Mo Lin's face, asking with genuine bewilderment why he wasn't feeling any fear. Mo Lin responded with a sharp slap to the monk's face, asking if he had water on the brain, leaving the man looking quite hurt. The chubby monk whined to Wanyu that the ghost was too fierce and had actually hit him, causing Wanyu to panic and ring his bell faster. The chanting never stopped, and Mo Lin, now thoroughly annoyed by these lunatics, decided he had seen enough of this absurdity. He reached out and snapped the red ropes blocking his way, charging up to Wanyu to ask why they were all acting so crazy in the middle of the night. Wanyu ignored him, simply increasing the speed of his chanting, which only caused Mo Lin to lean in closer and shout his question again. He demanded to know what kind of nonsense Wanyu was muttering, standing so close that his breath brushed right against the monk's face. Wanyu froze in his tracks as he realized this person was actually breathing, exclaiming in shock that he had nearly been scared to death by a living human. He admitted he thought he'd encountered a powerful spirit, which explained why his anti-ghost tools hadn't worked, a comment that only made Mo Lin angrier. Mo Lin snapped back, asking who exactly wasn't human, while Wanyu apologized profusely, though his explanations only made Mo Lin feel more offended. With a darkened expression, Mo Lin told Wanyu his whole family were the ghosts here, while Wanyu stood there looking utterly embarrassed and confused. To be honest, Wanyu prided himself on knowing the difference, but he had never seen a normal person radiating such a dense, overwhelming ghostly aura. The chubby senior brother stepped forward in disbelief, questioning how a human could possibly be walking around with such a sky-high level of spiritual energy. He reached out to feel Mo Lin's breath for himself, crying out in surprise that he really was human, while Mo Lin watched with pure disgust. Mo Lin asked if they were finally finished with their little show, leading Wanyu to apologize again, insisting the whole thing was just a misunderstanding. Not interested in small talk, Mo Lin demanded compensation, pointing out that their incense ash had completely ruined his brand new set of clothes. Wanyu continued to apologize as he reached into his pocket, pulling out 2,000 yuan to offer as a sincere gesture of goodwill. He repeated that he truly hadn't meant any harm, and seeing Wanyu act so humble, Mo Lin accepted the money and softened his tone slightly. He warned them not to let it happen again before turning to leave with Mingyu, leaving the chubby monk staring after them in total confusion. The monk asked his senior why that man was so strange, wondering how any living soul could carry such a heavy, ominous burden of ghostly energy. Wanyu admitted he had no idea, noting that in a world this large, there are bound to be things they simply don't understand yet. When a junior disciple timidly suggested the man might be practicing some dark, forbidden arts, Wanyu immediately cut him off, warning him not to gossip. He decided they would wait for their master to return before discussing it further, telling his men to act as if they had never seen this man. Meanwhile, we see Mo Lin return home after parting ways with Mingyu, where the ghost messenger Li Shui had already been waiting for some time. Li Shui bowed respectfully and reported that he had identified the intruders from a few days ago. It was Xianyun's cousin, Xian Wuhai, and his crew. They had apparently come to steal something, and after nodding his understanding, Mo Lin dismissed the messenger to process this new information alone. He realized he had overthought things, assuming the ghost realm had found him, and then turned his mind toward the dozen low-level ghosts he'd captured. He realized he had nowhere to store his paper talismans, deciding he would need to refine a proper ghost-containing vessel the next day before checking his phone. Opening the Yunchuan Ghost Society app, we see him scrolling through various ghost hunting requests, though most were just reports of minor, low-level spirits. However, the 14th task on the list caught his eye, a report of 4 deaths at the Minghai building. The mission required someone to investigate the situation, carrying a level 3 danger rating and a reward of 300 Ming coins. Thinking it might be a powerful ghost's doing, he accepted the task, and the next morning, we find ourselves at the entrance of the Minghai building. A few men in uniform were gathered there discussing the situation, with Captain Zhao who noting that the matter was becoming quite troublesome. He told his men that ordinary people like them couldn't handle this and should wait for a professional ghost tamer to arrive. Just then, a man in a black hat suddenly approached, prompting Zhao Hu to issue a stern warning that the area was dangerous and he should leave. Before he could even finish his sentence, a gunshot rang out, and Zhao Hu collapsed to the ground as the man in the black hat rushed into the building. The other officers finally snapped out of their shock, with one of them quickly dialing emergency services for medical help. With a weak voice, Zhao Hu urged them to report the dangerous suspect to headquarters and contact the Ghost Society immediately. Mo Lin had just driven into the vicinity when he heard the shot, but by the time he reached the entrance, he was already a step too late. He nodded to the officers, telling them he understood the situation and to wait there before his figure vanished into the Minghai building. A sudden, icy chill swept over him, prompting him to coldly summon Chen Shi, a red-clad ghost who appeared and bowed respectfully. When asked for his orders, Mo Lin told her there was an armed man inside and to find him, to which Chen Shi obediently complied. She drifted through the ceiling to the floors above, while Mo Lin began a slow, deliberate climb up the stairs, though a bad premonition began to stir. As an envoy, his intuition usually signaled that something significant was about to happen, so he summoned Chu Xing to join Qinshi. Mo Lin admitted he had an uneasy feeling, though Chu Xing tried to flatter him, asking what could possibly trouble a powerful envoy. Seeing Mo Lin's serious expression, Chu Xing stopped joking, shrunk back slightly, and hurried off to catch up with Qinshi. Upon reaching the second floor, Mo Lin found it empty, so to prevent any sneak attacks, he summoned Hong Yi to watch his back. As soon as Hong Yi appeared, her voice trembled as she admitted her fear, leaving Mo Lin genuinely surprised by what could possibly terrify her. Hong Yi repeated herself, insisting that there was something truly unsettling, waiting for them on the floors above. His expression shifted instantly as he shouted for Qinshi and Chu Xing to return, yet his calls were met with a chilling silence. He hurried up the stairs, but a sudden, piercing scream tore through the air, so sharp it made his ears ring with pain. A thunderous explosion followed, causing the entire Minghai building to shudder violently, and we can imagine his heart sinking in that moment. Recognizing that agonizing scream as Qinshi's, he rushed upward, knowing full well that she was a powerful nightmare-rank ghost. He worried for her safety, and perhaps a bit for the 20,000 Ming coin she represented, as the screams grew louder near the roof. The cries of agony intensified, and just as he reached the top, the ceiling above him was suddenly smashed open with a deafening crash. A mass of pitch-black flames slammed into the floor, and we see Qinshi trapped right at the very center of the dark blaze. Her soul was being consumed by the fire, yet she managed to gasp out a plea for him to leave before another scream erupted. Staring at the black flames, he realized with horror that this was the hellfire of the underworld, a flame born in the deepest abyss. This fire consumes the very essence of a ghost, and he wondered how such a thing could possibly have appeared in the mortal realm. Without a second thought, he swung his long sword with a powerful strike, aiming to sever the connection between the fire and Qinshi. With a sharp whistle of the blade, the hellfire was finally separated from her, falling to the ground where it found nothing left to burn. The flames flickered and died out, but Qinshi's spirit had visibly weakened, suggesting she wouldn't be recovering anytime soon. It was only then that he realized this wasn't the true source of the hellfire, but merely a stray flame cast from it. Qinshi apologized through her guilt, but Mo Lin gently comforted her, telling her it wasn't her fault and that she needed to rest. After all, even he found the hellfire intimidating, so it was perfectly natural that she couldn't withstand it. Another violent explosion rocked the ceiling, likely Chu Xing engaged in a fierce battle, prompting Mo Lin to send Hong Yi to help. Meanwhile, the man in the black hat was furiously berating a ghost, shouting about how lucky it was he brought the hellfire to find it. The ghost complained that it would have died if it hadn't come out for some air and food, only for these people to start causing trouble. The man in the black hat grew impatient, telling the ghost to hurry up and kill everyone so they could leave, as the nightmare-rank entity prepared to strike. The ghost then clashed with Chu Xing, who found the situation incredibly frustrating. Though his opponent wasn't physically strong, it possessed a terrifying advantage. We see that this ghost could manipulate a horrific type of fire, and in a moment of distraction, the black flames latched onto Chu Xing's arm. The fire erupted instantly, as if it had been fueled by gasoline, forcing Chu Xing to make a brutal decision to save himself. He violently tore off his own flame-covered arm, causing his spirit form to dim significantly as he realized another hit would surely be his end. Just as despair began to set in, Hong Yi appeared to relieve the pressure, much to the shock of the man in the black hat. He couldn't believe his eyes, wondering how a small place like Yinchuan could possibly harbor a third nightmare-rank ghost. As he looked toward the source of the ghostly energy, we returned to Mo Lin, who had just appeared at the top of the stairs. Gritting his teeth, the man pulled out a bottle and shouted to the ghost, Zhang Kuei, telling him to use the flames to kill everyone present. He tossed the bottle over, and Zhang Kuei caught it with a surge of excitement before crushing the glass in his hand with a loud crack. In the next heartbeat, the pitch-black flames completely enveloped his body, forcing both Hong Yi and Chu Xing to retreat in alarm. With a murderous roar, Zhang Kuei charged at them, but Mo Lin intercepted him instantly, swinging his long sword with lethal intent. This wasn't just a simple physical strike, but a specialized technique from the soul-dispersing ghost-catching art, a bit more sophisticated than a standard swing. Combined with his status as a member of the underworld, Mo Lin's innate skills would usually make short work of such an opponent. In any normal situation, he could have finished off a nightmare-rank ghost in seconds, but today, things were a bit more complicated. Without the hellfire of Yudu, he had to be cautious, and the man in the black hat watched in disbelief as Mo Lin traded blows with the ghost. He was stunned by Mo Lin's ferocity, unable to comprehend how a mere human could fight a nightmare-rank ghost on equal footing. Suddenly, Mo Lin activated a deceptive illusion, causing the environment to shift into a hellish landscape of black fire and fallen corpses. This was a manifestation of Zhang Kuei's deepest fears, and as the ghost grew increasingly frantic, Mo Lin prepared his next move. In the blink of an eye, a dozen clusters of fire rained down, and after Zhang Kuei unleashed this barrage, the hellfire of Yudu on his body grew noticeably dimmer, as it was a finite resource that depleted with every use. Mo Lin swung his hand, guiding his iron chains to lash out and instantly bind Zhang Kuei's physical form with a death grip. However, the black flames continued to crawl up the chains toward him, forcing Mo Lin to release his hold in a hurry. Only then did the black flames gradually flicker out and vanish. We see that not just any ghost can pull this off. This man could easily deploy 3 different tricks with a mere wave of his hand. Even more absurdly, he possessed 3 nightmare-rank contracted ghosts, and these 3 entities were willing to risk total soul dissipation to follow his orders. Meanwhile, Zhang Kuei had already broken free from the chains. The ghost then spat out a cloud of gray smoke, but Mo Lin countered by throwing a hairpin, a small trinket Zhang Kuei initially ignored. He tried to crush the pin with his hand, but panic set in a second later when the hairpin pierced right through his palm. It flew straight for the space between his brows. This hairpin was a gift from Mo Lin Sr. and a powerful spiritual tool in its own right. The moment he was struck, Zhang Kuei lost all ability to resist, and suddenly, Chunxi appeared directly behind him. With a swift motion, her claws pierced through Zhang Kuei's chest while Chu Xing lunged forward to grab the ghost's arm. The 2 ghosts literally tore Zhang Kuei in half and immediately began to consume his body to empower themselves. Mo Lin had hoped to suppress the ghost, but that would require capturing him alive or completely neutralizing his strength. Since Zhang Kuei was wreathed in the hellfire of Yudu, capturing him was nearly impossible, making a lethal blow the only option. Hong Yi watched from the sidelines, practically drooling, as he knew this essence was a magnificent tonic for any ghost. He felt too embarrassed to join the feast, but Chunxi glanced at him and tossed him a severed leg, much to his excitement. He stammered his thanks while taking a bite, while the man in the black hat, seeing Zhang Kuei dead, completely lost his nerve. He fired several shots that Hong Yi easily blocked, while Mo Lin watched him, wondering about the nature of that hellfire. Mo Lin realized that if he could obtain that flame, his strength would soar. Just as he prepared to question the man in the black hat about the hellfire of Yudu, a dull thud echoed through the air. The man had taken his own life. Meanwhile, in a tense meeting room at the Ghost Bureau, Li Binyan spoke with a heavy expression. She announced that a nightmare-rank ghost had appeared at Minghai Plaza, sending the room into a frantic chatter about how such a monster could manifest so suddenly. One man asked anxiously what they should do, wondering if Mo Lin, who was already on site for a mission, couldn't simply handle the nightmare-rank threat herself. Li Binyan's voice turned cold as she reminded them that there are hierarchies even among ghosts. What if Mo Lin's contracted spirits were simply outmatched? She asked what would happen then, leaving the room in a stifling silence until the young man spoke up again, asking if headquarters would intervene. Li Binyan replied helplessly that while headquarters would certainly help, that help only mattered if one stayed alive long enough to see it arrive. When she mentioned waiting for a level 5 ghost master, everyone's heart tightened. Distant water cannot quench a nearby fire, as she calmly issued her orders. She had already requested reinforcements, but the priority was to support Mo Lin immediately, commanding every ghost master present to set out at once. Soon, over 100 ghost masters gathered outside Minghai Plaza. We see them bracing themselves, ready to charge in and face the nightmare together. But just as they prepared for a desperate struggle, the sounds of combat within the building abruptly vanished, leaving behind an eerie, heavy silence. Suddenly, someone shouted that something was coming out. Li Binyan instinctively tightened her grip, her spiritual energy swirling in anticipation. As she focused her gaze on the entrance, Mo Lin's figure slowly emerged from the shadows, followed closely by 2 terrifying nightmare-rank ghosts. The spirits were casually gnawing on unidentifiable remains, causing Li Binyan and the others to recoil. To be honest, who could blame them for being terrified? Some lower-level ghosts were so frightened they retreated directly into their hosts' bodies, as whispers spread about the presence of 2 nightmare-rank entities. The crowd looked on, thinking this man was far too terrifying. Li Binyan took a deep breath to suppress her fear before finally finding her voice to ask a question. She asked if a nightmare-rank ghost had indeed appeared there. Mo Lin simply nodded, noting quite casually that it had already been dealt with. Li Binyan let out a long sigh of relief, while Mo Lin looked at the crowd with genuine curiosity, wondering why so many people had suddenly shown up. She explained she had brought reinforcements to help him, but he replied with total indifference that a single nightmare-rank ghost was something he could handle alone. He told them their help wasn't needed, leaving Li Binyan utterly speechless. After all, calling a nightmare-rank ghost just a ghost was a bit of an understatement. A threat like that could have leveled the entire city of Yinchuan, but for a ghost master like Mo Lin, who controls 2 nightmare-rank spirits, such arrogant words were simply his reality. He then turned to Li Binyan and asked her to investigate the origins of the man in the black hat. He requested all available data on him, and after Li Binyan agreed, Mo Lin drove straight to the Sifang courtyard. He intended to buy materials to refine ghost energy containers, yet after wandering for quite some time, he found nothing that caught his eye. Just then, a man in a black suit approached him with a respectful greeting, explaining that his young master wished to meet with Mo Lin. When asked who this master was, the man revealed that the Sifong courtyard itself was his master's property, piquing Mo Lin's interest enough to follow. They arrived at a private booth where a young man, roughly Mo Lin's own age, was waiting. Upon seeing our protagonist enter, the man greeted him warmly, introducing himself as Fu Wansan and explaining that he wanted to discuss a potential business deal. Mo Lin asked curiously what kind of business, and Wansan inquired if he still possessed any of that high-grade ghost energy. He expressed a desire to purchase it at a high price and, to show his sincerity, produced a black suitcase and snapped it open. It was filled to the brim with Ming currency. To be honest, this fellow was clearly loaded, and he smiled seeing Mo Lin's surprised expression. He noted there were 200,000 Ming coins there. Mo Lin calmly asked at what price Wansan intended to buy his ghost energy. Wansan clarified that he didn't want to buy it himself, but rather act as the seller, taking a 20% commission on every sale. Mo Lin hesitated. A 20% cut meant paying 6,000 coins for a 30,000 coin item, which felt like quite a lot to give away. Seeing this hesitation, Wansan lowered his offer to 15%, insisting he couldn't go lower due to venue, maintenance, and labor costs. He explained that advertising also required funds, making 15% his absolute bottom line. Mo Lin took a moment to consider the offer. He realized this would at least save him the trouble of selling the items himself, so he nodded and promised to bring the ghost energy in a few days. Wansan smiled, saying there was no rush, and then asked Mo Lin what he had been looking to buy in the courtyard earlier. Mo Lin admitted he was looking for some very specific materials but hadn't found any. Wansan replied that he personally enjoyed collecting rare items. He wondered if he might have something Mo Lin liked, and with that, he led him toward a hidden room concealed within the walls of the booth. The walls were adorned with all sorts of curiosities, from nameless bones to fragmented bronze artifacts and other strange trinkets. As soon as we enter the room, Mo Lin's attention is captured by a deep red gemstone ring. Wansan offers it to him freely if he likes it. Our protagonist asks what kind of gem it is, noting that while it looks ordinary, there is something peculiar about it. It carries a distinct aura of death, making it a perfect medium for crafting ghost tools. Fu Wansan shakes his head, admitting its mystery. He explains that he doesn't know the exact material, only that he acquired it from a cannibal tribe in Europe. Mo Lin nods thoughtfully. He offers to trade a ghost tool for the ring, a proposal that leaves Wansan utterly stunned, as the ring's value doesn't compare. Wansan quickly realizes that Mo Lin simply doesn't want to owe him a favor. Seizing the moment, Wansan speaks up again. He admits there is actually something he needs help with. When Mo Lin asks for details, Wansan offers a friendly smile. He explains that he is attending an important trade in 2 days and wants Mo Lin as his bodyguard, offering the ring as payment. Mo Lin considers it. The ring is indeed a perfect find. He agrees, takes the ring and the cash, and drives back home. Once home, he immediately begins refining ghost tools. 5 hours later, he gazes at 5 finished pieces, a very efficient afternoon indeed. Next, he takes out an iron lantern and uses the Ming currency as a medium to ignite the flames and forge the new ring. In just 2 days, this permanent ghost artifact would be fully refined. But right at that moment, a violent pounding erupted at the door. When Mo opened it, he found Feng Mingyu and his uncle, Lu Feng, standing there. Feng Mingyu didn't waste any time. He explained that his cousin was missing and he needed Mo's help to find her. Lu Feng quickly chimed in, promising Mo a ghost artifact of his own if he could bring his daughter back safely. Mo was skeptical. He asked why a man with such good information networks couldn't find her himself. Lu Feng simply sighed. He explained that while he could track her down within 2 days, he didn't know if she had wandered off or been taken. He had made many enemies over the years and feared the worst. But before Mo could even give an answer, Lu Feng spoke up again, offering information on the ghost winter flame if Mo would only agree to help. The offer of information regarding the ghost winter flame made Mo Lin's heart skip a beat. He was stunned that Lu Feng even knew of it. Suppressing his excitement, he smiled and claimed he would have helped find the daughter anyway, calling himself a truly helpful person. Feng Mingyu rolled her eyes at this, telling him to look in a mirror at his own hypocritical face, but Mo Lin simply ignored her. He continued to reassure Lu Feng, insisting that since he and Mingyu were friends, helping find his daughter was only natural. He even claimed he'd go through fire and water for them, a display of flattery so thick that Mingyu couldn't help but groan. She asked where the fierce man who captured high-level ghosts had gone, causing Mo Lin to cough awkwardly in embarrassment. To change the subject, he suggested they get down to business, prompting Mingyu to seriously ask if he actually had a way to find her. Mo Lin smiled, admitting he didn't before, but he did now. With a clap of his hands, he summoned his little ghost, Shaoli. In an instant, the spirit appeared before them, bowing and asking what Lord Mo Lin required of him. Our protagonist then made the introductions. He explained that while the little ghost lacked combat power, he possessed a sensory trick that could track anyone using the smallest clue. Mingyu was genuinely shocked, noting that Mo Lin, like Yun Lin, possessed 2 contracted ghosts, a truly impressive feat in her eyes. Mo Lin grumbled with mock dissatisfaction, asking if she was looking down on him by suggesting he only had 2. Naturally, she rolled her eyes again. She snapped back that she was giving him a compliment and lamented his complete lack of emotional intelligence. It was a fair point, really. Mo Lin retorted that he hadn't felt like a compliment at all before turning to Lu Feng to ask for an item belonging to the daughter. Lu Feng thought for a moment and handed over a photograph of his daughter, asking if that would suffice. Mo Lin nodded as he took it. He handed the photo to Xiao Li and commanded him to find the girl. The little ghost held the image and closed his eyes in concentration. A moment later, his eyes snapped open, announcing he had found her. Before Mo Lin could react, Lu Feng lunged forward in excitement. He grabbed the ghost, demanding to know where his daughter was, but the spirit immediately retaliated by seizing Lu Feng's throat. Lu Feng shuddered as he realized his mistake. He had forgotten that he was dealing with a supernatural entity, not a human. He had no doubt the ghost would have strangled him if Mo Lin hadn't been there to sharply command the spirit to let go. Mo Lin sighed and told the little ghost to lead the way. Soon, Lu Feng was driving while our protagonist and Mingyu sat in the back. The spirit sat on the hood of the car to point the way, and as the road grew increasingly rugged, it became clear the daughter was in the suburbs. Suddenly, Mo Lin called for the car to stop. Mingyu, confused by the sudden halt, asked what was wrong as he put on a serious expression. He told them to take him home immediately because he had something vital to do. Not daring to argue, Lu Feng slammed on the gas. After being dropped off at his door, Mo Lin rushed inside and quickly emerged carrying the cage used for refining ghost energy. He breathed a sigh of relief, realizing he'd nearly forgotten it. If the fire inside that cage went out, the whole thing would be ruined. He wasn't about to let tens of thousands of main coins go to waste. Mingyu, watching him carry the lantern-like object, asked what it was. He didn't offer a long explanation, simply stating it was very important, while Lu Feng cautiously asked if there was anything else he needed. Mo Lin calmly replied that he was finished and told him to continue the search for his daughter. To be honest, his priorities were quite unique. The little ghost pointed toward a nearby building and announced she was there. We see a simple 2-story house with a small courtyard. Directly in front of them, a river separated the paths, with a simple wooden bridge serving as the only way across. The 3 of them crossed the bridge. Meanwhile, inside the courtyard, a burly man asked the leader sitting in a chair what to do with the girl. The man coldly ordered him to kill her and throw her into the river. It was a chillingly casual command for such a dark deed. Hearing they could finish her off, the men around them showed a predatory gleam in their eyes and wore twisted, lecherous smiles. Watching the crowd close in, the little girl cried out in terror, begging them to stay away and not to touch her. The burly man grabbed her hand and lifted her up like a helpless chick. But just as things looked their darkest, a loud crash echoed from the gate. The man turned toward the sound and spat on the ground, cursing the arrival of uninvited guests at such a moment. A dozen men from the courtyard immediately swarmed forward to surround our trio. The leader stood up, tossing his cigarette but to the dirt. He remarked that he hadn't expected Lu Feng to find them so quickly. Lu Feng, recognizing him, demanded to know why Zhou Tian was doing this. He insisted he hadn't killed Zhou Tian's brother, but the man snarled back that Lu Feng had sold his brother's location to his enemies. Lu Feng took a deep breath, knowing all too well that a few simple words wouldn't be enough to make Zhou Tian let go of his hatred. He began to beg for his daughter's life, but Zhou Tian only gave a wicked smile as he grabbed the little girl by the neck. The girl gasped in pain, and seeing this, Lu Feng was on the verge of tears, pleading for them not to hurt her. Mo Lin turned to Mingyu and asked who these people were. Mingyu snorted coldly, explaining that they were nothing but scum. They relied on a few ghost tamer allies to carry out their dirty work. Meanwhile, Zhou Tian taunted Lu Feng, telling him to kneel and beg. He promised to release the girl if he did. Desperate to save his daughter, Lu Feng prepared to drop to his knees, but Mo Lin stopped him. He warned Lu Feng that the man wouldn't keep his word. Zhou Tian, annoyed by the interference, told the boy to mind his own business. The burly man from before threatened to cripple him, and to back up his words, he summoned his own contracted ghost. He hoped to scare our protagonist off, but Mo Lin wasn't buying it. He simply swung his long sword directly at the spirit. In the next second, the contracted ghost was sliced clean in half, its body dissolving into the air like mere dust. The man stared in disbelief, wondering how his high-level ghost could be killed so easily. It was a bit of a shock, to say the least. Zhou Tian's pupils narrowed as he realized an expert had arrived. Mo Lin coldly told them to release the child or die right there. Zhou Tian tightened his grip on the girl's neck, hesitant to move, yet he still tried to act tough, claiming he wasn't afraid of threats. He then called out to someone behind him, saying they had a bit of trouble and needed Sister Hong to step in. A moment later, a woman with delicate features wearing a white qipao stepped forward with a calm, steady grace. The moment Mingyu saw her, she immediately took a defensive stance, and even Lu Feng's expression darkened with worry. Zhou Tian boasted that she was a level 4 ghost tamer, confident that no one would dare move against him while she was there. However, the moment the woman saw Mo Lin, she instinctively turned her face away. Mo Lin, on the other hand, was quite surprised to see her. The woman remained silent, likely wondering how to handle the fact that she was currently working as muscle for someone like Zhou Tian. But Mo Lin stepped forward warmly, asking Han Yinxuan if she really didn't recognize the man who had recently sold her a ghost tool. Mo Lin asked if she had forgotten him so quickly, and Han Yinxuan, forced to face the situation, admitted she was currently working as Zhou Tian's muscle. She began to say that for the sake of their acquaintance, but Mo Lin interrupted her, telling her to leave and he wouldn't cause her any trouble. Han Yinxuan stood there in a daze, wondering why this young man was stealing her lines when she was the actual level for Ghost Tamer. Seeing her frozen in place, Mo Lin spoke up again, urging her to hurry and leave while he was still feeling generous. Han Yinxuan asked with a look of pure confusion if he was actually being serious, as Mo Lin had taken the words right out of her mouth. She felt the need to explain that she had already accepted 2,000 Ming coins from Zhou Tian to be his bodyguard for the day. Mo Lin let out a small sigh and offered her a simple solution. He would just give her 3,000 Ming coins instead. Zhou Tian watched this exchange in utter disbelief before finally snapping out of it and shouting after Han Yinxuan as she turned to go. He begged her not to leave, but Han Yinxuan acted as if she hadn't heard a word, her figure vanishing from the spot instantly. Mingyu could only give a silent thumbs up in admiration, truly impressed by how Mo Lin had handled the situation.